Chapter 533. At this moment, the European players in the Middle Continent were envious and jealous. They were fuming with rage. Those who did not know better would have thought that they were fire-breathing dragons. Their old rival on the forum, the imaginary enemy in the later stages of the game, had not been destroyed. Instead, the City of Dawn had become the top power in the continent with the appearance of a sage. The video of Rogers suppressing a martial sage with 2 moves had already spread to all the forums in the 7 continents. Seeing this scene, countless foreigners who were watching were all wet with tears. It was too powerful. This was the first scene of a sage battle. It was the first video that was released to all the players. The father of the Lord of the City of Dawn was also a sage. This meant that in the next few versions, as long as the Lord of the City of Dawn did not go crazy, it would be difficult to destroy the City of Dawn. But this was not the most important thing. The benefits that the City of Dawn provided to the players were enviable. As long as William did not die, the Chinese players would receive better benefits than the European players. The foreigners could only say that the grapes were sour. They kept complaining on the forum that the Lord of the City of Dawn might not care much about the Chinese players after he had a sage as his father. It was a pity that things did not go as planned. After the City of Dawn took over a portion of the Magic Sanctuary's territory, it developed steadily. Not only did it not become too arrogant, but it was also as stable as an old dog. Instead, it was the hope of the entire village. The King of Gods, Odin, had established Asgard. However, the human kingdoms had suppressed Odin in various ways. They wanted to test Odin's limits and see if he dared to resist. What faction did Asgard belong to in the Middle Continent? It was not a neutral faction like the City of Dawn. Instead, it was a pure light faction. In the name of protecting the Middle Continent and driving away the dark creatures, the players deceived the people and turned many civilians into believers. Fortunately, there were many dark creatures in the Middle Continent. In every version, the European players fought against the dark creatures. There were very few conflicts between the human nations. Most of the time, they joined forces to fight against the dark creatures. What was more impressive was that there was an orc empire, 2 orc kingdoms, and countless orc tribes. These were the targets of the players' conquest. Therefore, when Odin let the players do the multi-level marketing missions, they could also experience the joy of fighting and killing monsters. In the 9th month of the version update, Asgard's capital, there was a huge palace in this city, and only Odin lived there. And the civilians and professionals living in this city were all believers of Odin without exception. They even spontaneously called the capital of Asgard the realm of the gods. Living in a city where everyone believed in Odin, there was no such thing as crime, and there were no dark creatures in the city. But when he walked out of this city of 2 million people, he found that it was full of chaos, killings, robberies, and other signs of crime. There was a sharp contrast between the two. As a result, the more they believed in Odin, the more fanatical they became. When their faith reached a certain level, they would receive Odin's feedback, which would increase their strength, speed, and reaction speed. The commoners felt very good about this, because it was much easier to work. Work that usually took 3 days to finish could now be finished in 2 days. But for professionals, this kind of blessing from the gods was simply a miracle, and it caused the number of fanatics to continue to increase. This also led to many believers to live in the realm of the gods as a goal, and the players also had this kind of benefit, and they were naturally happy to make faith in the temple a daily task. That meant that millions of players, plus millions of believers, went to the temple almost every day or prayed at home. Because of this, under Odin's control, Asgard also formed an official organization. It was called Oracle. The full name was Apostle of God. There were many levels of members in this organization. Every commoner could become an apostle as long as they were believers. Oracle required professionals and believers. It seemed that there was no task, but it was actually a reserve. Oracle Law Enforcement Team, middle level, high-level professionals, believers, responsible for the safety of the commoners in the city. Oracle Law Enforcement Team, high-level guru professionals, believers, formed an army to fight against dark creatures and orcs, resist foreign invasions, and so on. Oracle Law Enforcement Team, guru, fanatics, to fight against all illegal crimes, eliminate dissidents. Hand of God, epic professionals, believers. Professions that were not cultivated by oneself would find it difficult to become a fanatic after becoming an epic profession. There was nothing higher than that. There were no legendary professionals under Odin for the time being, and the foundation was too shallow. But no matter what organization, as long as there was a class, as long as there was a level, there was no need to worry about no one wanting to climb up. There were 6 Hand of God under Odin. They were still just believers, but Odin believed that as long as this group of people felt the blessings of the gods, they would not worry about becoming true fanatic. And even so, 2/3 of the commoners and professionals in Asgard had all joined the Oracle organization. This was a great cohesive force, or, in the case that the gods could give back power, faith was a drug, enough to make countless people sink into a quagmire, unable to extricate themselves. This also allowed Odin to create a great force in a short period of time. But it was also because of this situation that Odin's Asgard and the Oracle attracted the attention of many camps in Middle-earth. But after Odin felt the crisis, he was not an idiot who would only wait for others to attack. At this time, after he gave the order to protect the realm of the gods to the Hand of God, he turned into a white lightning and quickly disappeared into the eastern sky. Soon, when Odin was about to approach the city with a population of millions of people, 2 legendary angels appeared in the sky and quickly stopped the uninvited guest. The Lord of Asgard, Odin, has come to visit the holy angel cherubim. When the 2 legendary angels heard the word Odin, a hint of caution flashed in their eyes. Since this guy appeared in the Midway continent, he had been extremely arrogant. Not only did he spread his faith wantonly, but he also had the title of the King of Gods. This was not what he claimed to be. It was what the Chosen Ones themselves thought. They had captured many Chosen Ones, and after some interrogation, they began to think from various aspects. The Chosen Ones should have some kind of channel that they did not understand. Because this group of guys were saying, he is Odin, the King of Gods, is there any other reason? Asgard is the realm of the gods, and Odin is the creator of Asgard. If he is not the King of Gods, what else can he be? Hurry up and let me go. Otherwise, when the army of the realm of the gods comes, you will be finished. I, the godly King Odin, have 12 main gods under my command. Yes, not to mention the rest, the son of the godly King Odin, the god of thunder, is a real main god, the god of thunder. You saints together are no match for Thor. F***ck. With so many comments, all the forces on Middle Continent were scared ****. What the hell? Odin had 12 main gods under his command? F***ck your mother. Was there such a story in the mythological era? They had never heard of it. Didn't they say that the main gods did their own thing? But then again, since Odin could be called the King of Gods, it was not impossible for him to be anxious about some powerful gods. After all, even the saints did not understand certain things about the mythological era. History was broken, so they had to believe it. Because of the unscrupulous attitude of this group of players, it seemed that they did not want to lie. Especially the god of thunder, Thor. These 2 words attracted a lot of people's attention. Although this was Middle Continent, everyone was a saint, and the distance between the continents was not a distance. Many saints had heard some news, which was that in the legendary continent's war-ending empire, there really was a thunder element professional called Thor. Not only did he have the ability to be invincible among his peers, but he also had the possibility of being the reincarnation of the main god. As a result, the forces on Middle Continent were a little conflicted. No wonder Odin was so arrogant. It turned out that what the Chosen One said was true. Although Odin should not be a reincarnated god, he was only seriously injured and his realm had fallen to the legendary realm. But he was so unscrupulous, which meant that he definitely had a big trump card. And the problem was, right now, the various powers of the Middle-earth continent wanted to see what kind of trump card he could reveal, or rather, how they should treat him in the future. After all, even if Odin walked the path of godhood, he was not bad. He did not break the rules wantonly, and he seemed to have a deep hatred for the dark creatures. Then it was not impossible for the two sides to unite. Of course, this was all in the future. The premise was that Odin had enough strength and the ability to talk to them on equal terms. Otherwise, killing this arrogant guy as soon as possible was the right choice. The two legendary angels pondered for a long time, but they thought that Odin's appearance would bring more trouble to the human race, and it was a good thing for the winged race. And so, the two brought Odin all the way to the Holy Angel Palace. Very soon, Odin saw the Holy Angel Cherubim. Cherubim also looked at him. Their eyes met. Odin lowered his head. It was not to show courtesy. He had to maintain his persona. Instead, it was to show Cherubim's original appearance. He had a halo above his head, and he looked like a baby with a childish voice. A pair of glowing wings flapped back and forth, making Odin want to reach out and pinch his little face. Cherubim's round eyes widened, and he said in a childish voice, "King of the gods? Odin, I've heard a lot about you. But then again, in my heart, as the king of the gods, even if you do not surpass the main god level, you should still be a super expert among the main gods. Even if your injuries are extremely serious, you should still have many tricks up your sleeves, right? Could it be that you want me to help you solve the crisis that the human race is targeting you?" At this point, this little fellow with a childish voice squinted his eyes. He looked harmless, but he gave off a great sense of crisis. Odin glanced at him, picked up the tea on the table, and took a sip. Then, a red dot appeared between his eyebrows. He pointed. "The number of times I can use it is limited. Killing a few saints is not a problem, but after that, I can only hide." Then, he glanced at Cherubim disdainfully. The War of the Gods caused the main gods to be sealed in the divine realm, forcing hundreds of gods to reincarnate. Do you not see that there is someone like me in the world of gods? Someone like you. To put it bluntly, on the first day of the War of the Gods, you will definitely fall. Cherubim's expression changed slightly. He felt an aura. It gave off the faint aura of a peak saint. An aura so powerful that it was like that of an angel. An aura that was enough to kill people. Cherubim's heart sank and he no longer taunted. Instead, he said in a childish voice, "Then tell me your plan." Odin nodded. "The human race is the enemy of the Harpies, but I." Chapter 534. Cherubim wanted Odin to tell him the plan? What kind of plan was there? Odin said straightforwardly, "If the winged race wants to become the ruler of the fourth era, the first obstacle you have to face is the human race. Actually, you're not helping me. I'm helping you." Eee. Cherubim, who was only half a meter tall, blinked. The halo above his head flew in front of Odin and said in a childish voice, "Aren't you embarrassed to say that?" "Yes." Odin nodded. Then, he calmly analyzed the situation. "What is the winged race doing now? You're taking advantage of the invasion of the dark creatures to occupy the human territory. But to be honest, if the dark world doesn't attack, will the Sky City do anything?" Cherubim was about to speak, but Odin interrupted him. He took out a map of the Midland continent and placed it in front of him. He pointed at Asgard and the winged race's territory. "Look at the situation. The winged race originally had 2 kingdoms in the Midland continent. The territories that were invaded by the darkness can also be considered a kingdom. The 3 kingdoms are all located in the western continent, and they are all connected to each other. Especially since you're temporarily in the Midland continent. The 3 kingdoms can even merge into one and become the winged race empire. But do you think that the human race won't attack you now? Will they tolerate you in the future? No, they won't. Your power is too strong. Among the 7 continents, the winged race in the Midland continent is the strongest. You seem to have occupied the most territory in the Midland continent, but the human race is afraid of you. Think about it with the halo above your head. If Asgard were to be destroyed, what would be around the 3 feather kingdoms? Cherubim raised his eyebrows and scanned the map. The Orc Empire is in the south, the Holy Empire is in the north, and the Rose Empire is in the east. Cherubim laughed coldly and said, "To be honest, even in the face of such pressure, I'm not afraid. I even feel that Asgard is hindering the expansion of the winged race's territory." Yes, you don't have to be afraid. The winged race has hundreds of sages, and the Sky City can provide you with reinforcements at any time. William stretched out 3 fingers. But there are 3 things that you have to admit. What? Gods descend. Darkness invasion. Merge the continents. Tell me, Odin said. Where did your feather people get their confidence from? How could you fight your way through the chaos of the world and become the true master of the epic? Ignoring everything else, just the human race alone killed more than half of your saints. You're not joking, are you? This made Gilab feel like he was hallucinating. The Harpies were no longer as powerful as they had been in the past. He fell into deep thought. That's right. The human race is like a huge mountain, and there are many gods. What about the darkness invasion that could destroy the entire continent? This was a chaotic world. No matter which faction it is, they won't dare to start a holy war for now. Now, all the forces were waiting for an opportunity. He was waiting for 2 powerful forces to start fighting first, and then he would slowly reap the benefits. Because every single saint was a strategic weapon, and the loss of even one would bring huge losses to the race. However, the Harpies' small-scale invasion was already putting a lot of pressure on the other races. If things went wrong, they might even ally with each other. Now, which faction was the strongest? The humans, the Harpies, and the Dark faction. Actually, it was easier for the humans, who occupied the most territory, to fight against the Dark faction. The best option for the Harpies was to wait and not join the chaotic battle in advance. Odin glanced at him and laughed in his heart. Who was he? William's clone. Who was William? He was the super talker of the legendary continent, and a super troublemaker who made a fortune from war. Odin said again, "What the Harpies need to do now is to ally with each other and find allies. Don't make enemies on all sides. For example, Asgard and I are your best allies. I know that the Harpies are very strong and have accumulated resources for 3 eras. However, in this chaotic world, to put it bluntly, you can only protect yourselves." Gilab was angry. Although he looked cute, his words were filled with coldness. Protect ourselves? The Harpies only have the ability to protect ourselves. How can we attack at this time? Odin laughed coldly. What a joke. Everyone knows the importance of the 4th era. With the help of luck, the Harpies can give birth to existences that surpass the saints when the gods descend. However, the Holy Emperor of the legendary continent has already reached this realm. How strong do you think this realm is? Gilab clenched his small fist. He did not know, but he suddenly stared at Odin because he knew that Odin was once a Lord God. Seeing that Gilab had acknowledged that he was once a Lord God, Odin knew that his plan had succeeded. So he slapped the map and said coldly, "The current Holy Emperor of the Light can defeat all the saints in the gods' continent." How is that possible? Gilab gasped. He knew that the Holy Emperor of the Light had already reached this realm. When he broke through the realm, it was not obvious even to the legendary professionals. However, the group of saints could feel the intense pressure. They felt that every inch of the light that shone on their skin seemed to be controlled by someone. Although the feeling was very weak, it would disappear soon. But the pressure brought about by that time was extremely great. Odin looked at him coldly. "Nothing is impossible. There is such a big difference between us. This is the difference in rank and the difference in the rules. In addition, for countless years, the Holy Emperor of the Light is the first person to break through to the Saint realm. He has the right to decide the rank, and the heavens and earth will bless him with countless luck, allowing him to take the lead step by step and even reach the realm of knowing everything. If you really want to defeat the humans, even if an existence that surpasses the saints appears in your race, they may still not be a match for the Holy Emperor of the Light. Hee. Gilab suddenly laughed coldly. Even if the Holy Emperor of the Light is as strong as you say, doesn't that mean that the Harpies will never be able to become the master of the era? At this time, Odin said in a mysterious tone, "That is why I said that the entire Harpies are still too young. You do not know how to endure and wait. Think about it. Why did we revive in the Fourth Era? Why did we descend at this time? Why did so many people give up on the divine path, reincarnate, and walk on the divine path? Is it because of the so-called master of the Fourth Era?" Gilab swallowed. "Why, the God-King realm." Odin chuckled coldly. "The master of the Fourth Era is not a race, but a single person. Help me recover faster. At the very least, you will have a sovereign as an ally. The future is not a battle between the saints, but a battle between the sovereigns and the saints. Otherwise, I really don't know how many existences surpassing the saints will appear among the Harpies. Of course, if you Harpies are not confident that I will definitely step into the God-King realm and prevent you from becoming the master of the era, then forget about it." Odin glanced at him meaningfully. It was as if he was saying, "You Harpies are all women. If you keep dawdling, I can't be bothered to waste my breath on you." Gilab, however, fell into deep thought. He had been thrown into a daze by the barrage of words. As for whether or not Odin was speaking the truth, no, this was all just his conjecture. But his current identity was that of a seriously injured sovereign. Everyone had no choice but to believe what he said. But the most important thing was, the Harpies had also had similar thoughts and discussions before. They had believed that the god's appearance at this time was most likely a huge conspiracy, and that the master of the Fourth Era might not be a race, but rather a single existence, one that was powerful enough to contend against everything else. After a long time, Gilab sucked in a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Fine, we Harpies will help you resist that pressure, but how can we trust you?" Odin gazed off into the distance. "My enemies are far more powerful than you can imagine. During the final battle of the God realm, many of the 12 sovereigns under my command died. But I didn't die, so naturally my old enemies didn't die. So do you think I need a powerful ally? Fine, then we'll be allies for now. As for the master of the era, that will depend on our own abilities." Gilab's lips curled up in a confident smile. There was nothing wrong with agreeing. He had already confirmed Odin's identity in his heart. However, he also believed that Odin, who was heavily injured and would rather sleep for countless years than be reincarnated, was not as good as the gods who were reborn after being destroyed. He reckoned that becoming a main god was his greatest future. So why not use some methods to protect Asgard first? That way, the Harpies would still have a sovereign as an ally? It would be worth it. Chapter 535. The humans were not used to the sudden appearance of Asgard, and they were fearful of Odin. They constantly sent troops to harass and suppress the borders of Asgard. They wanted to force Odin to attack. But as they fought, their opponents were the winged race. What was the current state of the winged race? It did not matter who they were or what race they belonged to. They just had to kill them. When the winged race appeared, they lost their will to fight and escaped quickly. After all, the humans did not dare to kill the winged race yet. Odin's words were transmitted to the other winged race sages through cherubim. This slowed down the invasion of the winged race, and they even stopped their expansion plans. It was obvious that the winged race's god Odin's words had the intention of letting the dark creatures deplete the human empires first. Or rather, he started to flap his wings again. The war between the winged race and the human race would not start early like before. William had not thought of this, but it was good that the invasion of the winged race had slowed down. He still remembered that the human race and the winged race had started the war early. Not only had they suffered heavy losses, but the dark creatures had also taken advantage of the situation. Because the winged race did not know that the third wave of darkness invasion would not last for 1 or 2 years. It would be a continuous attack with both legendary and sages. Other than that, the winged race and Asgard had suddenly announced that they would form a military alliance. In this way, the human race could not probe Odin. The Asgardian players could also enter the winged race's territory to complete missions. 3 birds with 1 stone. In the grand scheme of things, William had preserved the vitality of the winged race and the human race. They could become the main force of the third darkness invasion. Even if the sky collapsed, there would be tall people to hold it up. From his perspective, Odin did not have to face the pressure of the human race and waste his trump card. Thirdly, the players would not be trapped in Asgard. They could roam around and even accept various missions from the winged race. William heaved a sigh of relief. He thought that Odin's matter had been resolved, but he did not expect something to happen. A huge space vortex suddenly appeared above the ocean. A light pillar that was tens of meters thick shot into the sky and pierced through the blue dome of heaven. This attracted the attention of countless forces. When Odin immediately transformed into a bolt of white lightning and rushed over, he saw a human saint. The two of them looked at each other, but didn't make any rash moves. Odin was not interested in pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. The aura of a peak saint on his forehead remained. The pillar of light that erupted from the spatial vortex didn't dissipate either. It was as if there was an endless amount of energy in the alternate dimension, and the pillar of light was the alternate dimension's vent, crazily ejecting mana. Both of them could feel the boundless power of the light pillar. Odin had no intention of charging into the spatial vortex against the pillar of light, and neither did the human saint. As the light pillars continued to gush out, a white mist formed near the spatial vortex. Magic mist. Odin didn't hold back as he devoured the mist in large gulps, crazily absorbing it into his body because the mana could also replace divinity. Such a rich mana density made him feel as though he was soaking in a mana sea. He just had 2% divinity value, but after devouring here for half an hour, he still had 3%, which was a big profit. Divine Hall? Divine Realm? Or what the hell? Odin's mind spun wildly, trying to find memories of this place from his previous life. But even if he could understand the situation, the players couldn't enter this place. Where does this spatial vortex lead to? Someone asked cautiously as he continued to absorb mana. Cherubim also came here. He glanced at Odin, who was still madly absorbing mana, and secretly cursed him for being a glutton. He had wanted to ask Odin, the Lord God. Fortunately, the mana of the spatial vortex wasn't really endless, and half an hour's worth of energy was the limit. In this half an hour, legends and sages from various forces in Middle-earth had all arrived. The Rose Empire had sent a saint and 3 legendary powerhouses. The Holy Empire had the same. Next were the elves, dwarves, the Church of Holy Light, and so on. A total of 8 saints and 23 legends. As the pillar of light gradually dissipated, the first human saint chuckled. I was the first to arrive. I'll help you test this place first. As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped into the spatial vortex and disappeared in an instant. But the others didn't act rashly, not even Odin. They were all looking at a warlock saint wearing a white robe with golden stripes on his sleeves. The space warlock saint of the Rose Empire, Philip. But the situation was clearly worse than they had imagined. Phillips looked around, frowned, and shook his head. I don't know where the spatial vortex leads to. It shouldn't be as simple as an alternate dimension. It's not too safe inside. It's up to you whether you want to go in or not. With that, The space warlock saint also stepped into it. The 8 saints hesitated for a moment, then also entered. Odin didn't fall behind. After Cherubim entered the spatial vortex, he followed. In an instant, his body was torn apart. His soul was crushed into pieces. But Odin didn't feel any pain. He only felt as if he had been stuffed into a washing machine, as if his entire body was being crushed. He didn't know how long had passed. He only felt that when he woke up again, he seemed to have appeared in another world. Odin's eyes widened. He felt the density of magic, as well as the trees under his feet that were hundreds of meters tall. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. A ruin left behind from the mythological era? No, this is indeed not an alternate dimension, but a small world. Odin couldn't help but clench his fist. What was the biggest difference between an alternate dimension and a small world? An alternate dimension couldn't form its own system. It was just a stable space created by a space-type professional, but it had an upper limit on the lifespan of the space. All resources had to be obtained from the gods' continents, whether it was magic or land. A small world, on the other hand, was amazing. Not only did it form its own system, it had all the major elements, land, oceans, and so on when it was created. The only thing it didn't have was the existence of life. This kind of small world could only be created by some powerful main god. Of course, some small worlds could be formed naturally. For example, the alternate dimension of the World Tree was actually a small world. But with the destruction of the World Tree, that small world also began to split, becoming pieces of alternate dimensions that were inherited by the various elves of the 7 continents. There was also the small world within the Harpies' Sky City. That was the angel world that dozens of Harpies had spent countless years refining. Odin didn't see anyone else, nor did he sense their auras. He walked into the depths of the forest. The forest was thousands of meters tall. Logically speaking, the ground should have been black. But the roots of these trees shone with multicolored light, providing enough light for the living creatures, animals, and magical beasts living on the ground. Not long after, Odin's mouth twitched. He saw a cold pond. No, this was not a cold pond. Instead, it was a source of magic condensed from magic. Gulp. Odin didn't know what was at the bottom of this cold pond, but he knew that if he absorbed all of it, his divinity would increase by 1%. He didn't know what kind of place this world was, but now he understood. This was the best place for Odin's clone to collect divinity. Come, let's do it. Odin rubbed his hands together. For others, finding divine weapons and treasures might be more important, but right now, he just wanted to reach the god realm as soon as possible. After all, he was in a strange little world. How could he find treasures with his luck? It was better to take advantage of this opportunity to absorb divinity. As for divine weapons, he could leave it to fate. Chapter 536. There were many magical beasts, animals, and plants in the small world, and these strange-looking little guys were very clever. He had just felt the aura of many high-level, grandmaster, and even epic magical beasts. Logically speaking, this magical spring was a huge attraction for any plant or animal. But there was nothing in the vicinity of this cold pond other than rock. That was obvious. There was danger here, so no living animal dared to approach within a radius of 10,000 meters. Odin narrowed his eyes and carefully observed the ground around him, but he didn't find any suspicious traces, at least not something too big. He pondered for a moment and gradually approached the cold pond. He lowered his head and looked down. It gave off a feeling of silence and darkness. It gave off a feeling that the whole world had quietened down when one approached it. Even the chirping of insects and birds in the forest could not be heard. Not bad, but since I didn't sense any danger, it can't be a saint-level creature. Odin took a deep breath and reached out to scoop up the magical spring. Soon, the magical spring water that had left the cold pool was about to dissipate into the air. Odin didn't see any strange creatures in the spring water, and it could even be said that there were no impurities in it. He didn't hesitate and swallowed it into his stomach. Comfortable. A mouthful of magical spring water poured into his stomach, and his whole body felt limp and numb. His divinity value was also slowly rising at a speed visible to the naked eye. In particular, that kind of pleasure was simply indescribable. It was far from what devouring the magical mineral veins could compare to. The source of magical power was pure magical power, and even if the magical mineral veins were absorbed, there would still be countless transparent crystals left. Come, let me see what's under this cold pool of magical power. Odin raised his eyebrows cautiously, then cast a spell to draw out a magical spring water, opened his mouth and began to gulp it down. Gulp, gulp. In a short time, he had made the cold pond sink by more than 3 meters. But as the source of magical power gradually decreased, Odin gradually felt the cold aura below, as if there was a poisonous snake in the depths of this deep cold pool, ready to jump out and bite him at any time. But it was still not too dangerous. Odin was not convinced. Not to mention a poisonous snake, even if there was a giant python, he could break it with his iron hand. He sucked wildly. He continued to suck wildly. Ding dong. Your divinity value has reached 4%, it's so strong. It's equivalent to a mana vein. Odin gulped. He didn't know how many mana veins there were in this small world. However, based on the density of the mana in this small world, it was definitely not a small amount. If possible, as long as he had enough time, he might even be able to reach the heavens in a single step, forming his godhood and stepping into the divine spirit realm. If I can really do that, I'll be able to gain a firm foothold in Middle-earth. Odin clenched his fist. He had to grasp this opportunity well. Moreover, to be honest, his method of devouring mana madly was something that even other professions who practiced the path of godhood couldn't absorb mana like him. Because this was the super ability of the innate gods. Innate gods were the earliest source of life in the world of gods. At that time, there were far fewer races and creatures. If they wanted to become gods, they definitely couldn't rely on faith, but on devouring magic power. It was that simple, crude, and easy. For example, the divine path of today was much more relaxed. However, there seemed to be a hidden danger. There were too many innate gods, and the world of gods had less and less mana. In the end, everyone could no longer devour mana. In the end, both sovereigns and divine spirits had absorbed the power of faith. Many innate gods had even relied on the power of faith to become divine spirits and sovereigns. However, the endless thoughts and prayers stopped them at overgod at the highest level. Their path forward was directly sealed off. However, His Highness didn't care. Only children had to make choices. Whether it was the power of faith or mana, he wanted them both. He didn't care if he had the system or the cheat. However, at this moment, bang. Odin felt as if his head had been hammered by someone. He felt dizzy, and the notification that he had been stunned for 2 seconds appeared on his information interface. At the same time, a glowing humanoid spirit emerged from the cold pond. He bared his fangs and suddenly stretched out a hand to grab him. Crack. Odin's eyes were covered. He felt his head creak as it was being squeezed, and his skull was almost crushed. His body was dragged into the depths of the cold pond. Bang. His chest was hammered by a fist. His body involuntarily retreated, but his head was still being grabbed. Then, he suddenly felt a chill in his chest, as if a hand had torn open his heart and suddenly crushed it. But he still wouldn't die. Legendary professionals had middle-level elemental bodies, so they wouldn't die so easily. Moreover, this was the body of a natural god. Even if his head and heart were crushed, it wouldn't be fatal. At most, he would lose a lot of health points. 2 seconds later, Odin, who had regained his senses, used his hands to control the guy's arms and smashed his head down. There was a loud bang. Both of them raised their heads at the same time. The former grinned, while the latter opened his bloody mouth wide and drooled. He really wanted to bite Odin to death in one bite. This glowing creature looked like a natural deity. But the violent aura of this creature was like a beast without intelligence. It was far from being a natural god. And William happened to know what this creature was called. Natural evil spirit. In fact, the gods' continent also had the saying that yin and yang countered each other. Since there were natural gods who carried great luck and had great wisdom, naturally, there would also be this kind of innate evil spirit that was full of misfortune and had no intelligence. Both of them countered each other. But because the natural gods didn't have intelligence and only had the instinct to devour, they were eventually killed by the gods. For a whole 3 eras, there had not been such a creature. But the 4th era was special. Not only were there natural gods, but there was also this creature. He didn't expect there to be such a creature in this small world. Although the innate evil spirit couldn't be used to refine an incarnation, its body contained countless magic power. Devouring a natural evil spirit was much more profitable than devouring a magic or vein. Odin tightly grabbed the arms of the innate evil spirit. Using the characteristics of the thunder god's hand, he exerted force and cracking sounds were heard. Bones were broken. But the innate evil spirit didn't care about this method. It seemed that he didn't know pain. He struggled to open his mouth, and suddenly, a dazzling light burst out. Odin tilted his head to avoid it, and a large stone wall behind him was vaporized. In the next moment, Odin slapped the innate evil spirit's body, causing it to be embedded into the stone wall. Then, he punched the innate evil spirit crazily. In just a few breaths' time, the innate evil spirit's head was smashed into meat paste. The innate evil spirit kept resisting, but in front of Odin, everything was useless. In this narrow space, as long as the innate evil spirit was caught by his hands, it wouldn't be able to escape. After more than 10 minutes of frenzied punching, other than the innate evil spirit's HP continuously falling, there was no way for it to escape. But this kind of terrifying defense made Odin look at him in a different light. "Brother, you're not bad. Do you have to be so thick? Do you know that my fists have the characteristics of the thunder god's hand? It's possible. But it's useless. Any professionist that Odin attacked in a corner wouldn't be able to walk out alive." As the innate evil spirit only had a sliver of HP left, Odin mercilessly punched the innate evil spirit one last time. Bam! Lightning flashed. The innate evil spirit's body finally lost its luster. Its body was no longer in human shape, but had turned into a head-sized mass of magic essence that carried an indescribable amount of magic power. He threw out insight. Natural evil spirit origin grade. Legendary grade. Legendary effect. All attributes plus 50-100 effect. Health plus 10,000 30,000 effect. Randomly obtain an endowment a special effect. Increase the quality of life. Gosh, it's a big win. All attributes plus 50-100. Odin swallowed his saliva. These 3 effects were quite good. He wanted to use them on his own body. Not only would it increase his physique, but he could also obtain an endowment. But the last special effect was the most important. It was to increase the quality of life. If he used it on his own body, it would give him a lot of experience points. William could rely on fleecing to gain experience points, but Odin wasn't so lucky. If he wanted to level up quickly, he had to spend money. So there was no need to hesitate. Anyway, it was his body. Odin held the innate evil spirit's origin and swallowed his saliva. "Let's not talk about this anymore. I'll do it first." Odin held the innate evil spirit's origin that was as big as his head and sucked. He felt a huge amount of magic surging into his throat. Before it entered his stomach, it followed the flow of battle energy and spread throughout his body. Not only did it strengthen his physique, but it also greatly increased the total amount of battle energy. There was a feeling of numbness all over his body. This was the evolution of the quality of life. Even the matter between a man and a woman couldn't be compared to this thing. Of course, the matter between a man and a woman was poisonous. Some people with weak willpower would become addicted to it. Fortunately, William wasn't that kind of person. And this was the purest magic essence. There were no impurities at all. In a short 5 minutes, Odin did not stop as he absorbed the magic essence into his body. The effects appeared one after another. Finally, there was a ding-dong. Prompt: your divinity has reached 10%, a full 6%? Odin was dumbfounded. He was in the legendary realm. 100% of his divinity was almost equivalent to 10 billion experience points. He gave 600 million divinity points in one go. Was that okay? Then there was another ding-dong. Prompt: you have obtained the endowment Constitution Transformation. Odin tilted his head. What kind of endowment was this? Why hadn't he heard of it? Then, he opened the attributes of the endowment and took a closer look. William's soul was in deep thought. He felt that this thing should be left for his own body. Gosh. He was King awesome. God-level endowment. But then again, even if William was given this magic essence, he wouldn't be able to swallow it in one go. If he ate it slowly, he might not even have the endowment. But it seems that I'm not going to turn back on the path of the King of Gods. Odin touched his chin. Once again, he absorbed all the magic essence. Then, he went to find other treasures that could increase his magic. Chapter 537. Endowment Physique Transformation. You will have an extraordinary physique. Every time you enter combat, your physique will continuously transform. Every 5 minutes of combat, your physique will transform once. 1 point of physical strength will increase your defense by 0.3, reduce true damage by 10%, and increase your health regeneration by 200 per second. The maximum duration is 30 minutes. Your physique will completely transform. 1 point of physical strength will increase your defense by 1.8, reduce true damage by 60%, and increase your health regeneration by 1200 per second. Restriction: if you are out of combat for more than 5 minutes, all effects will be recalculated. Was it Odin's flesh? As a legendary warrior and a god's body, Odin's combat power was very strong. He had more than 20 endowments, but in terms of flesh, he was quite strong. He only had 700,000 health points, which was more than twice that of a ranger like William. But in terms of defense, he was only on par with William. After all, he did not have Prince William's diamond body. But he had a legendary body. 1 point of physical strength was equivalent to 2.1 points of defense. There were also buffs that reduced damage and control. He was a legendary professional. The legendary body was not as good as the diamond body. There was a difference of 0.4 points of defense between the two. Don't underestimate this difference of 0.4 points. It was a huge difference. If not for his intermediate elemental body, which had a good damage reduction effect, Odin's basic defense value might not be higher than William's. The appearance of this endowment, physique transformation, was like adding wings to a tiger. No matter what kind of battle it was, as long as he could last for 30 minutes, he would have an increase of 1.8 points of defense. Then, 1 point of physical strength would be equivalent to 3.9 points of defense. TSK. Wasn't this the combination of a large worm and Mundo? He could go wherever he wanted. Not only could he easily kill people, but he could also point at people's noses and call them aunties. The only weakness was that his physique could only go up to level 6. No wonder that natural ferocious spirit became more and more tanky. He only died after being beaten up for more than 10 minutes. Odin raised his eyebrows. This was because he had a pair of indestructible fists. If other people were to encounter this guy, they might not be able to kill him. They might even be able to endure for 30 minutes under his coaxing and pestering. By then, it wouldn't just be a matter of killing him. They might even be killed instead. Odin stood up and left the cold pond, continuing to try his luck aimlessly. As for things like shrines and divine weapons, he did not desire them at all. He knew that those things were things that saints pursued. He just wanted to increase his divinity value quickly. The density of mana in this small world was unusual. It was 30 times denser than the City of Dawn, which had 5 mana mines. This situation not only meant that there would be many powerful magical beasts here, but it also meant that there would be many mana veins and mana sources here. Very soon, when he arrived near a valley filled with vines, he sensed that the density of the magic power there was beginning to soar. His eyes flashed with electric arcs as he sensed that there were only 3 epic magical beasts in the valley. There are only 3 epic magical beasts in a single mana mine. This small world is really impressive. Ordinary legendary creatures can't defend the mana mines in the gods' continent. Odin did not hesitate and charged into the valley. These were 3 epic-ranked Black Panthers. When they saw him, the originally smooth black fur on the surface of their bodies instantly stood up like steel needles. Get lost. Odin frowned. His legendary aura was like a blade that wreaked havoc. The 3 magical beasts could not even breathe. He did not want to fight with these 3 fellows. Firstly, it was not necessary. Secondly, he was afraid of attracting the attention of the other bosses. Fortunately, these 3 Black Panthers had some intelligence. When they realized that they could not defeat the person in front of them, they growled and retreated continuously. Finally, they leaped out of the valley, abandoning their old nest that they had lived in for more than 10 years. It could not be helped. This unfamiliar fellow's aura was too strong. They could only grit their teeth and swallow them down. They were only 3 Black Panthers, not King 3-headed hellhounds. Odin walked to the place where the 3 Black Panthers were originally lying. The mana mine was protruding from the ground, and some magical gemstones were exposed in the air. It seemed that there was so much magic power that it was exploding. It was like a sprout of the soil. He had no intention of taking them away. He directly swallowed them. The magic power in these magical gemstones seemed to be completely uncontrollable. They were all absorbed by this huge suction force. Devour magic power. This was Odin's inherent talent as a natural god. In other words, every natural god had this talent. Another 6 or 7 minutes passed. Pigeon, Odin comfortably burped. He glanced at the attribute panel. It had increased by another 1%. Now it was already 11% divinity. And just as he continued to search for the mana mine and mana source, 300 kilometers away, 8 saints had already gathered on top of a mountain. One of the saints took out a table, a chair, and wine. He then started drinking on this mountain peak. This small world is very big. It is equivalent to the territory of 3 human kingdoms, one of them said. Have you found the reason for the opening of the space whirlpool? The space warlock saint of the Rose Empire shook his head. There is no source. It seems to have opened suddenly. And just after we came in, the space was blocked again. Haha, could it be that this was originally some divine territory with gods living in it? In the end, they did not survive and are now dead? It's not impossible. Although the death of the owner of the small world will not cause the space to collapse, it will cause the entrance of the small world to appear in the gods' continent and choose a new owner. This is not something that has never happened before. Everyone began to discuss. Unsurprisingly, this group of people were very cautious and were also very worried about encountering unknown dangers. The most important thing was that although they did not see any ruins related to the shrines, they did not believe that this small world was naturally born. The greatest possibility was that it was created by a powerhouse at the level of a lord. Then, even if a powerhouse like the lord really died, he would have left behind many backup plans, making it difficult for them to easily gain control of this world. Moreover, even if they did not encounter any danger, in order to gain control of the small world, the other saints would also be competitors. Cherubim glanced at this group of human race and elf race saints and decisively slipped away. Because even if this group of people did not deal with each other, because the feather race brought too much pressure to Midland, they might join forces to deal with him first. If he stayed any longer, the gains would not make up for the losses. As soon as the holy angel of the feather race left, the others looked at each other, and many of them cursed in their hearts for being too indecisive. But since he had left, everyone would rely on their own abilities. At the same time, Odin had found several veins of ore and now had 15% divinity. Once again, he discovered a mana spring. He immediately charged in without hesitation. And interestingly, there was also a natural ferocious spirit in this source of magic. But after it killed the natural ferocious spirit, it inadvertently broke the bottom of the deep pool. At that moment, Odin was stunned. It turned out that below the source of magic was an endless underground sea of magic. It was this sea of magic that was why there were so many sources of magic in this world. But unfortunately, it was like this. He felt it, the aura of a saint-level ferocious spirit. But he was Odin, the fake king of gods, 26 years old, a determined warrior of materialism, an outstanding member of the Young Pioneers, and a primary school monk who had worn a red scarf before. Why would he be afraid of these strange things? I'll just take one breath, just one breath. Odin swallowed, then stored the ball of magic into his space ring and carefully began to absorb it. Yes, just one breath. The kind that would not even take a breath. Chapter 538. The underground magic sea seemed boundless, but it was not very big. In particular, William could not extend his senses here. Moreover, Odin had already sensed the sage-level fierce spirit, so he did not dare to be too presumptuous. He could only hide in a corner and slowly reap the benefits of socialism. Yes, take it slow. Without stopping, Odin gradually entered the state of being one with the world. A sage-level fierce spirit was comparable to a god. Logically speaking, he would definitely discover that someone was stealing from his house. But Odin was not an ordinary thief. He had been proficient in excavation and transportation since he was a teenager. Now, he had become a master of the underground workers. When he sank into the ocean of mana, he could even enter an inexplicable state, and this guy really didn't notice it for a while. But there was an important point. The sage-level fierce spirit did not notice him because he was focused on the 8 sages above him. The sage state. It was an incredible state. Legendary fierce spirits had no intelligence and could only rely on their instincts. Then the intelligence of a sage-level fierce spirit was equivalent to that of a magical beast. This sage-level fierce spirit was constantly observing the 8 sages. He was secretly spying on them. Unfortunately, his secret observation had been discovered. Although they did not know his exact location, most of the sages started to approach the ground. They did not transform into rays of white light and fly around in the sky. The sages had sensed that there might be a god's relic. It might not be above the ground. It might be underground. Time passed slowly. The sages started to search for something worth taking. The legendary professionals were much more relaxed. They had the same mentality as William. They did not need to think about divine weapons. Those belonged to the sages. But the treasures, magic potions, and various mineral veins in the small world were good stuff. They would not let go of anything that was beneficial to them. If they did not fill up their space rings, it would be a huge loss. The sages seemed very generous. Most importantly, they had the confidence to become the masters of this small world. According to their thinking, the small world would belong to them, and those cheap treasures would be given away. After all, they did not care about anything else. This small world had the territory of 3 human kingdoms, which was equivalent to 2/3 of the land area of China. With enough magic power, not to mention 700 or 800 million people, it would not be a problem to live more than 1 billion people. This was the best way to preserve the bloodline of the race. At this moment, the Space Saint of the Rose Empire, Rambo, and the Fire Saint of the Holy Empire, Brad, were walking together as they laughed. We humans are the rulers of the Third Era. It seems that only the human empires of the Rune mainland have a small world, right? Blad, the Fire Saint, was a hot-tempered man. Exactly. The world tree of the elves produced a small world. Even though it's now split into a dozen alternate dimensions, I reckon that each of those alternate dimensions isn't any smaller than ours in terms of size. Don't look at the pitiful elf race, constantly complaining about their small population, lack of resources, and lack of saints, crying about being poor everywhere. But it was already an epic 10,000 years. Slightly modified, after so many years, each elf kingdom had only increased its population by a few million. Wasn't this **T? In particular, have you noticed that the population of all the elven kingdoms on the 7 continents is around 10 million? TSK, who are you kidding? Also, I haven't been to the angel world created by the winged race. But there are only around 50 million angels living in the Sky City. Is this what they have the confidence to challenge us humans? The angel world is their real trump card. Now, among the 3 strongest races on the gods' continent, only we humans have revealed all our trump cards. It's really annoying to compare ourselves to others. Yes, that's indeed the case. How about you help me snatch the control of the small world from others and fight for the human race? Rambo asked after some thought. Brad's mouth twitched. I have a bad temper, but I'm not stupid. Why don't you help the Holy Empire snatch the small world? Fortunately, the two were just talking, and no one took it seriously. But just as they were talking and laughing, almost at the same time, the 8 saints drilled into the ground at almost the same time and brazenly attacked the Saint Evil Spirit. They seemed to be looking for something just now, but in fact, they were all determining the exact location of that fellow. At this moment, the earth trembled. This small world, which had a relatively stable spacetime, had suffered such an exaggerated attack for the first time. The other legendary professionals stopped in their tracks and all got up and flew into the sky, not daring to stay on the surface any longer. Because the battle between the saints was too intense, if they were not careful, they could tear this small world apart. And the legendary professionals could think of this. The other saints were also worried that their attacks were too fierce. When this group of people killed in front of the saint-level evil spirit, they all used their most powerful moves to pull him into the space of the saint land. Odin was also awakened at the same time. He saw a whirlpool suddenly appear in the sea of magic, and the aura of several saints appeared and disappeared immediately. Did they join forces and take that saint-level evil spirit away? Odin's eyes lit up. This was a good opportunity. This time, he went all out and began to frantically devour the sea of magic. All the space rings on his hand also absorbed the liquid-like magic. In a short period of time, the place where he existed had truly become a whirlpool. Every minute, every second, there was an endless amount of magic pouring into his body. Odin's eyes were already bloodshot. He knew that he only had a very short time, because that saint-level evil spirit could not withstand the combined forces of so many saints. He had to fight for the most benefits for himself in this short period of time. 10 seconds, 30%, 20 seconds, 33%, 30 seconds, 35%. Time slowly passed. While devouring the magic, Odin used his eyes to scan the other places. 3 minutes. As expected, a 1,000-meter-tall, 10,000-meter-wide shrine was hidden in this sea of magic. And that saint-level evil spirit should be the guardian of this shrine. This was definitely the relic of a main god, and an extremely well-preserved one at that. One had to know. Not all main gods would leave behind shrines and relics, and not all main gods had their own small world. But a main god that could control a saint-level evil spirit was definitely not to be underestimated. As soon as Odin saw the temple, He transformed into a streak of light and charged towards the vicinity of the temple. If he hesitated, it would be for nothing. He had understood this since he was 3 years old in kindergarten. And just as he was about to open the door, he quickly changed direction and came to a rather remote corner of the shrine. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. After a few dog paddles, a large hole had already been dug in the indestructible wall. The next moment, he followed the sea of magic into the shrine. He had to admit that he had dug and built many shrines, so he was very familiar with the structure of the shrines. He easily arrived at the shrine's hall, and the sea of magic did not cause any ripples when he entered. Instead, it allowed Odin to absorb magic here. At the same time, Odin also saw this palace that was not quite the same as before. It was like an emperor's palace that was worshipped by tens of thousands of people. At the top of the 1,000-step staircase, there was a huge golden throne, and on the throne, there was a lifelike corpse of a man. He wore very simple clothing, and the surface of his body was like white jade that was covered with crack. The light of divinity had long disappeared, and his eyes were tightly shut, giving people the feeling that he had just died a few days ago. But even so, this corpse gave people endless majesty, and no one dared to look directly at it. Or rather, he had just died a few days ago, which caused the sudden appearance of the small world. But soon, the auras of the 8 sages appeared again. Odin did not hesitate. He took the risk of the resurrection of the person in front of him. He grabbed the golden throne and disappeared on the spot. The 8 sages were shocked at the same time. They felt that a treasure had been snatched away from them. But fortunately, the control of the small world was not taken away, and the shrine seemed to be intact. That was enough. Especially for many sages, the small world was the most strategic thing. What about the corpse of the main god? Oh, sorry. They had never seen it before, and they had never thought of it. After all, not everyone was a grandmaster grave robber. If they were not skilled enough, they would not be able to find a shortcut smoothly. And Odin's destination was not somewhere else. It was the City of Dawn. He had been summoned there. And now, he was beside William in the magic tower. Buzz. Layers of dense magic barriers enveloped the magic tower, and the entire magic tower glowed with colorful lights. It gave countless players and commoners immense pressure. Many people were wondering what the goddess was doing. Moses looked at the corpse in disbelief. 3 seconds later, she could not help but glance at William and say, "Is this the treasure that you said you wanted to bring back? The corpse of the Lord God is not a treasure?" William widened his eyes. He did not dare to walk towards the corpse because the unfamiliar and majestic aura was too heavy. Odin was able to bring it back because of his level and the characteristics of a natural god. Moses took a deep breath and pulled out William, who was hiding behind her. She scolded with lingering fear, "Aren't you brave? Why are you hiding behind me and grabbing the corner of my clothes?" The corners of William's mouth twitched. As for Moses, he said with lingering fear, "It's good that he's really dead. Otherwise, both of us would be dead." The prince chuckled. "I know, especially since Odin is my clone. His attack is the biggest test. Even if he dies, it'll just be a clone. But if I can bring him back, it'll be a huge gain." "Is he really dead?" "I can still feel it. He just died not long ago. The moment he appeared, his aura affected my brain. I thought that my old friend had come to find trouble." When Moses spoke, especially when he said the word friend, he even gritted his teeth. William could tell that there was a hidden meaning in her words. He asked, "Enemy?" My death back then had a lot to do with him. Do you know who he is?" William shook his head. "I don't know." Moses raised her eyebrows and her lips curled up. "He's the Lord God of souls, and his godhood has not been completely shattered." Chapter 539. The corpse of a Lord God whose divinity had not been completely shattered. How valuable was that? It's countless times more valuable than a divine weapon. William rubbed his palms. Divine weapons were also categorized. Most of them were used by ordinary gods. Divine weapons of the Lord God level were very rare because they were items that could destroy the world. Actually, one could tell from Moses' gaze that the Soul Lord clearly did not have such a divine weapon. Ever since William found out that this fellow was the Soul Lord, he more or less understood why the small world was filled with natural ferocious spirits. If other gods and Lord gods were unable to control natural ferocious spirits, this was the Soul Lord. He must have reached the pinnacle of research in the field of souls. However, he still died. He did not expect the small world to appear in such an awkward position. 8 sages appeared and crushed the sage-level ferocious spirit guarding his corpse to death. I wonder who obtained the corpse of a sage-level ferocious spirit. It sucks. William sighed and asked, "How did this fellow die?" Moses extended her hand and tapped the Soul Lord's glabella. She separated a portion of her consciousness and sank it into the shattered divinity. Not long after, she retreated with a pale face and could not even stand properly. William hurriedly hugged her waist and asked, "What's wrong? You're not dead?" "He's dead. He's completely dead. I thought that after he died, there would be a lot of pure mental strength left in the shattered divinity. But his mind was filled with endless thoughts, prayers, blessings, and curses. I almost fell into it. This is the faith he collected over countless years. Until now, it has not been completely stripped away and even caused him to die." Moses frowned. She then patted away the restless little hand on her waist and said again, "His soul has been completely devoured by faith. It's fine if it's only for a short period of time, but if this body is not discovered after a long time, then he will become a madman, a pure madman, a madman who will fall into the dark world." William's eyes widened. "You mean that the countless distracting thoughts will form a new personality that will replace the Soul Lord?" "Yes. Actually, it's a little wrong to say that it's a new personality because that personality is madness and chaos. There have already been gods in this situation since the mythological era. This is also the reason why we reincarnate." Moses nodded obediently. "What about now? How do we solve it?" William was a little puzzled. The goddess of magic, who was wearing a purple magic robe and had a curvaceous figure, smiled sweetly. "Naturally, it's to absorb all his divine power and refine his divine spark. Even if the body of a god dies, it can be maintained for countless years. Even though the divine spark was slightly cracked and the mana within it was almost completely gone, the distracting thoughts of faith were still unable to leave. They could only fight in the divine spark like a parasite, gradually forming a distorted soul. But right now, I just need to deal with his body. I can't devour godhood, but I have a way to slowly refine it." William's eyes lit up. Absorbing divine power? This thing was a little tricky. He suddenly asked, "Should we absorb the divine power, or should we let Odin's clone do it? Speaking of which, Odin has collected more than a dozen space rings source of magic power. Even if he doesn't absorb the divine power, he can still step into the realm of gods." Mana source? Moses did not care that Odin's clone had reached a higher realm earlier than her, but the words mana source caught her attention. William saw her expression and told her everything that his clone had seen, such as the size of the mana source, the explosion of countless mana energy from the space vortex, and the natural ferocious spirits. After listening to this, Moses fell into deep thought. She could not help but say, the so-called mana source should be the endless mana in the body of the Lord's soul. William was dumbfounded. Could a Lord's soul have such vast mana? He had thought that the mana source was used by the Lord's soul for training. Even a saint wouldn't dare to resist that pillar of energy that could last for half an hour. In addition, there was an uncountable amount of mana in the underground magic ocean. Odin had only devoured a small amount of mana, and he was about to enter the realm of gods. But then again, if the Lord's soul was not strong enough, how could he fight against all the sages? "I understand now." Moses sighed. She had a complicated expression as she explained. It's no wonder that the Lord Soul's godhood was shattered, and the mana within was almost completely gone. There was no remnant soul memory. Because the Lord Soul shattered the godhood himself, and the mana was released by him. As for the majority of his soul origin, it should have escaped when the mana scattered. That's the energy beam that you mentioned. Because he was unable to resist the beliefs, he gave up his body and the Lord Soul's godhood. He walked on the path of reincarnation. It's more likely that some of you who entered the small world have been possessed. William widened his eyes. Was this even possible? But then again, if a Lord Soul was forced to such a state by the beliefs, it was not impossible for him to give up his body. If one were to think deeper, was the location of the small world too close to the continent? Was the impact too great? It was possible that the Lord Soul had done this on purpose. He wanted people to enter the small world. The Lord Soul knew how careful those fellows were when exploring the ruins. Even if they possessed someone, they would not set up a trap on their own divine body. Perhaps one of the natural ferocious spirits was the real trap. It could be a legendary ferocious spirit, or a sage ferocious spirit. Hiss! William inhaled a breath of cold air. If that was the case, then the Soul God scheme was truly impressive. Fortunately, he was not afraid. Odin's clone was exploring the ruins, so he was not afraid of death. If his real body had gone, he would not even dare to devour the mana in the magic sea, let alone get close to the temple. Moses saw William's fearful expression and smiled. Just be careful in the future. Don't underestimate the Lord Gods. Whether they are dead or not, they will leave behind many fatal moves. You said that your clone has enough mana to enter the divine realm. Don't let him absorb the energy of other bodies. I'll help you convert the energy of this Lord Soul's body and absorb it all. What about you? William asked in surprise. I don't need it, and I'm not interested. Moses raised his eyebrows calmly with a look of disdain. The prince was speechless. Moses was a germaphobe, but he liked it. On the other hand, MOC wasn't lying. She could really rely on herself to enter the sage realm and even higher realms. Subsequently, under Moses' command, William extended his hand and grabbed the head of the Lord Soul. The goddess kept chanting incantations, and countless magic bags wrapped around William and the Lord Soul. At the same time, the entire magic tower was operating at full capacity. It was as if it had to use infinite power to absorb the energy of the Lord Soul's body. It could not be helped. This was a Lord Soul. Even if it was a dead Lord Soul's body, ordinary people could not easily absorb the energy from it. Although William was proficient in soul magic, it had nothing to do with the Lord Soul. The energy could not be transferred automatically, so it could only be extracted by force. As the majestic energy was continuously extracted, it was transformed into the purest magical elements halfway through the process. Moses's voice sounded from behind him. The energy I convert will definitely be expended, and it might even be a lot. Therefore, even if the body of a soul chief god is complete and doesn't suffer too much damage, don't even think about turning all your flesh and blood into the strength of a chief god's body. I'll further strengthen your right arm. Then, I'll use the remaining energy to strengthen your bones. From there, your body will be strengthened. Understood. William nodded. The energy transformed by Moses could easily fuse into his body and strengthen his right arm. The numbing sensation made him moan uncontrollably. Moses blushed. This guy was really shameless. Fortunately, the magic tower had been shielded. Otherwise, if outsiders heard them, they would not know what they were doing. After she finished speaking, she carefully glanced at the back door, afraid that the blood moon which would sneak in like a ghost. As time passed, William's right arm had completely evolved. It was no longer just the god's right hand, but two complete god's arms. In the next moment, Moses increased his strength and transferred the divine power to William's body, which was to every bone in his body. While William involuntarily moaned, he saw his experience points skyrocketing. Or rather, the strength of a professional's bones represented the essence of life. The strengthening of William's bones meant that his life level was evolving. Using data to describe it, it was definitely a skyrocketing experience point. Otherwise, the epic level would not be able to withstand the intensity of the evolution. If there were no accidents, it was very likely that he would advance to the legendary level. Thinking of this, William was overjoyed. The remaining magic source of Odin was enough for him to advance to the god realm. Then, he would be able to establish himself in the Middle-earth continent. He could also return the 10 drops of blood essence to William. His body would also advance to the legendary level. It was like ascending to the heavens in a single step. From then on, he would be able to stand at the peak of the legendary continent and even the gods' continent. Because in this era the sage level was the strongest, there were not that many experts at the peak of the sage level. Although the Pope of Light was extremely powerful, William was not his enemy. For a moment, William's heart was stirred. Moses even wanted to ask, "Do you have to be so lascivious? It sounded like someone was riding on you and beating you up." However, the energy conversion of a Lord God's body was much slower than expected. As time passed, slowly, the Lord God of Souls was left with a broken piece of godhood. William's last bone was completely strengthened. Ding! William did not even need to complete the occupation change mission. He had ascended to the heavens in a single step. Legendary. Chapter 540. Legendary. A true legendary was not as simple as a bloodline. From today onwards, William was a true legendary boss. Whether it was in terms of bloodline or level, he was still a legendary boss. This was a fundamental difference. This was an evolution in the hierarchy of life. Moses also felt the changes in William's body. He did not disturb William. He reached out and took away the broken Lord deity's godhood. He sat at the side and slowly refined the faith within. What was a Lord deity? A Lord deity was a combination of magic and soul. But with faith, the faith would also be in it. As long as the Lord deity's soul was still in the Lord deity's godhood, it was difficult to use violent means to remove it, because the faith was like a pore on the surface of the soul. Every strand of faith was very painful to remove. However, if someone were to refine it from the outside, it would be much simpler. It could be said that it was a violent demolition of the place. As the goddess of close combat magic, Moses was very good at this. While William was immersed in the enjoyment of becoming a legendary professional, he heard a series of notifications. Prompt: You have successfully changed occupations. Prompt: You have become a Dawn Ranger and Great Enchanter. Prompt: Beginner level elemental body has advanced to intermediate elemental body. Prompt: Mutated Thunder Constitution has evolved to Mutated Thunder Golden Body due to the transformation of the bones. Prompt: Indestructible Vajra Body has evolved to Indestructible Vajra Body due to the transformation of the bones. Prompt: Epic Life has evolved to Legendary Life. 1 point of physical strength equals 140 health points. Prompt: Epic Magic has evolved to Legendary Magic. 1 point of intelligence equals 1. 8 Magic Attack Power. Prompt: Advanced Flying Skill has evolved to Legendary Flying Skill, using battle energy/magic to fly. Basic flying speed is 1000 km per hour. Prompt: You have become a legendary professional. 4-dimensional attributes plus 300, health points plus 30,000, charm plus 20. Prompt: The upper limit of your battle energy and magic manuals has reached level 80. This was an evolution of the hierarchy of life. This was an evolution of the essence of life. The gap between mythic and epic was obvious. Be it attributes, talent, attack power, or defense, there was an unimaginable gap. When William was at the epic level, Even if he activated his peerless and intermediate elemental body, he could at most fight against a legendary professional. This was because of his high defense. Otherwise, he would not be able to withstand the attack. Even an existence like him couldn't compare to a legendary professional, which was enough to show how big the gap between them was. But then again, this bones transformation only led to the advancement of defense talents. I'm a ranger, I need to deal damage. What are you doing? William was going crazy. He was not worried about his tankiness, and he was fine with his fists in close combat. But couldn't he increase his long-range endowment? Damn it. This was too much. But immediately after, a ding-dong sound slowly popped out. Prompt: You have obtained the class talent Dawn of Thunder. William widened his eyes. When he glanced at the attributes panel, he started laughing mischievously. Awesome. Hence, he slowly opened the interface that he had not seen in a long time. Well, he was going to start a wave of data. He was that arrogant and willful. Others had nothing to say. William Blackleaf, level 180, occupation, Dawn Ranger, occupation, Holy Ghost Master of Magic race, half-elf, bloodline potential, legendary, level 180 basic attributes plus 110%, endowment, handsome, endowment, legendary life, endowment, legendary magic power, endowment, destruction of thunder, endowment, golden body of holy thunder, mutation. Your thunder attribute attack and defense will increase by 50 points. Thunder attribute damage from enemies of a higher level will be reduced by 30%. Thunder attribute damage from enemies of the same level will be reduced by 40%. Thunder attribute damage from enemies of a lower level will be reduced by 70%. Your affinity with thunder attribute will increase by 80%. All thunder attributes will be increased by 50%. Thunderbolt Heart. Passive: Your heart surges with power like the thunder of the heavens and earth. Every attack from the enemy will cause the Thunderbolt Heart to resonate, causing your heart to beat strongly and forcefully. You will recover 40% of the damage dealt and 5% of your maximum HP. Thunderstrike. Use all the thunder power in your body to deal 50,000 plus. Thunder attribute attack x 1000%. Thunder attribute damage to the enemy. Consumption. None cooldown. 3 hours side effects. In the next 10 minutes, your thunder endowment will lose all effect. Endowment. Guardian of the Holy Spirit. Endowment. Legendary flying skill. Endowment, indestructible body of diamond. Your physical strength equals 2 points of defense. Your defense will increase by 1500 points. Maximum health points plus 40,000 points. Normal damage dealt by enemies will be reduced by 40%. True damage dealt by enemies will be reduced by 50%. Most negative buffs dealt to you by the enemy will have their effects and duration reduced by 40%. Endowment, Legendary Lord. Endowment, Eye of Truth. Endowment, Heart of Justice. Endowment, Undying. Endowment, Intermediate Elemental Body. You have the Intermediate Thunder Elemental Body. Every cell in your body can adapt to the Thunder element and store a huge amount of Thunder element. You will be immune to most Thunder attribute damage. Elemental Body will reduce other elemental damage by 20%. Elemental Body will increase your movement speed by 80%. Elemental Body will increase your defense and attack power by 30%. Elemental Body will increase your basic Thunder attribute damage by 800 points. Thunder Domain. You can release the Thunder Domain. Within the domain, all your attributes will be increased by 40%. Attack power and defense power will be increased by 30% on the basis of all attribute. At the beginning of the Thunder Domain, it will cause 30,000 plus Thunder damage x 800%, one-off true damage to the enemy. After that, each lightning in the Thunder Domain will cause 5,000 points of Thunder attribute damage to the enemy. It will also cause a series of negative buffs such as numbness, stun, and paralysis. Skill range, within a radius of 10,000 meters. Duration, 1 hour. Cooldown, 3 hours. Endowment, Killing Gaze. Endowment, Thunder Dawn. This is the endowment of your main occupation. You can shoot an arrow that will definitely hit the target and reduce the enemy's health points by 10 to 20%. Special effect. The enemy's health points will be recovered by 30%. Special effect. Within 30 minutes, the enemy's health points will be reduced by 10 to 20%. This cannot be recovered. Special effect. This skill ignores distance, space, and time. Special effect. This skill is also effective against sage creatures, but it is very difficult to lock on to them. Gosh! William swallowed hard. Was this the endowment of his occupation? Was it activated when he became a legendary? It was going to shoot through the sky. This was a real killing move. It was undoubtedly a super killing move. It could even kill a sage, but the probability was low. Next, William continued to admire his attributes panel. Health points, 690,500 endurance points, 55270. The basic attributes were as follows: frowny face power, 4277 physical strength, 4360 agility, 4082 intelligence, 2754. The special attributes were as follows: frowny face charm, 363 plus, 102 plus 30 ring of time, luck, 6 divine blessing. The plus in brackets was the equipment attribute increase. Holy Dawn battle energy a level, legendary attribute, thunder a level 65/level 80. 6666666/435300 experience, battle. Energy points, 33,000/33,000 points. Recovery speed, 1,050 points per second. The activated special effects and skills are as follows. Special effect. Any battle energy skill will have a 30% increase in attack power, and it will carry 1,800 points of thunder attribute attack. Whose special effect. Power plus 130, physical strength plus 130, agility plus 130, intelligence plus 80. Whose special effect. Health points plus 15,000. Special effect. Endurance plus 8,500. Battle energy shield. The surface of the body can produce a battle energy shield equal to the amount of battle energy. It consumes 350 battle energy points per second. The basic defense is 6,000. If the attack power exceeds the upper limit of the defense, it can consume battle energy and even break the shield. Thunder special effect. If the shield is attacked at close range, there is a 90% chance of triggering a thunder reflection. The enemy will be paralyzed, stiffened, and burned. It will also cause 1,300 points of thunder attribute damage. After the shield disappears, the shield can be activated again after 5 seconds. Light of Dawn. On a certain battle energy skill, it can increase the value of the battle energy by 20%. It can increase the attack power by 500% and the thunder attribute damage by 3,800 points. The cooldown is 10 minutes. Speed of Thunder. When you activate the battle energy shield, it will increase the movement speed and attack speed by an additional 40%. Force of Thunder. When you activate your battle aura shield, each of your attacks will cause an additional 4,000 points of thunder attribute damage. The Saint Soul Magic. Level. Legendary a level. Level 65 80ths. 88888/4237300. Mana points, 33,000 points. Recovery speed, 1,050 points per second. Special effect. Your magic resistance increases by 25%. Special effect. Power plus 80, physical strength plus 80, agility plus 80, intelligence plus 230. Special effect. Health points plus 15,000. A special effect. Magic attack power increases by 35% and it will carry 1,800 points of soul attribute damage. Life sacrifice. You can extract the soul of a professional whose health is lower than 30% and whose rank is lower than legendary. It can replenish 30% of their health. Distance, within 100 meters, cooldown, 30 seconds. The Saint's Soul Blessing, using fusion as a skill, Saint's Soul Embodiment, the Saint's Soul Defense. Any mental attack you receive will reduce the damage by 20%. The negative buff duration will be reduced by 30%. Life Transfer. You can sacrifice the enemy's soul to restore 30% of the health of your teammates. Distance, 100 meters, cooldown, 30 seconds. The interface disappeared. William could not help but swallow his saliva. Because he saw his physical strength. It had to be said. How should he put it? Due to various equipment and the enhancement of the Beast God necklace, his physical strength had surpassed everyone else. He had become the one with the highest four-dimensional attribute. He did not say anything else. He was an outstanding legendary ranger. It was normal for him to have 690,000 health points. It was normal for his basic defense to reach 18,000. But how should he put it? In the legendary area of Area A, there were only 16,000 to 20,000 people. Maybe some legendary trash wouldn't even be able to break through his normal attacks. William could not help but smile. Moses raised his eyebrows when he saw William's gaze. What was going on? Brother, are you very confident now? Chapter 541. The boundless interface left William once again. He felt an inexplicable sadness because it was caused by endless pressure. Fortunately, after stepping into the legendary realm, he gained 3 new skills, and His Royal Highness was once again brimming with a long-lost smile. Arrow Storm Level 1 Skill Attribute. Make a fan-shaped attack with the arrows. All enemies in the area will be attacked by multiple arrows. Each arrow has 300 plus, agility x 180%, attack power. Coverage, 10 square meters. Number of arrows, 10 consumption, 130 battle energy points. Cooldown, 1 minute. Holy Spirit Redemption Level 1 Skill Attribute. You can revive creatures that have died less than 1 hour ago. The corpse must be as complete as possible, and the soul must be intact. Consumption, 300 magic points. Cooldown, 3 hours. Holy Spirit Revival Passive Level 1 Skill Attribute. You can revive the dead, scattered, or exhausted Holy Spirit heroic soul with 50% health points. You can continue fighting for 10 minutes. Consumption, 180 magic points. Cooldown, 3 hours. Gosh, these 3 skills. William glanced at them and felt unwell. He was so excited that he could not close his legs. Let's not talk about the useless arrow storm that seemed to be a waste of arrows. The Holy Spirit Revival was the real awesome skill. It could revive creatures that had died less than 1 hour ago. Of course, the prerequisite was that one's physical body had to be as complete as possible, and one's soul had to be absolutely complete in order to achieve this. If it was someone like William, who killed people and destroyed their hearts, even if the enemy died, he would still use a soul shock wave and mental blast. This group of people wouldn't even be able to enter the Netherworld River, much less revive. But this was only level 1 of the Holy Spirit Revival. When William upgraded it to level 40 or 50, a lot of special effects would be stacked together. It would definitely be a godly skill. It might even be able to pull people out of the sticks. Yes, I remember that Moses was able to resurrect burned cinder when she was an enchanter. She was the one who resurrected burned cinder. William narrowed his eyes. He had to admit that the saint's soul magic that Moses taught him was awesome. But did he steal the skills of other priests in the game? But how should he put it? It was difficult for the priests in this world to heal, let alone revive. If he wanted to revive someone, he would have to rely on the professionals of the soul. The third Holy Spirit Revival was not bad either. It could increase the duration of his group battle ability and allow him to beat up experts of the same level in a group fight. Well, he had already decided that he would refine the 3 legend-rank bigwigs of the magic sanctuary and turn them into his holy soul heroic spirit. Ignoring everything else, Moses was able to keep their souls here and prevent them from entering the river Styx. This was also a very impressive operation. When the time came, all he had to do was stuff a fresh soul back into his body. Then, he would stir it and shake it. A brand new legendary fighter would appear. From then on, he would live a painless life and become the guardian of the City of Dawn. His Royal Highness must be praying for them in his heart. TSK, now that I think about it, soul mages are really powerful. William sighed. He couldn't help but think about the Lord God of Soul who had a backup plan. He felt that the Middle-earth continent was about to descend into chaos. Not to mention anything else, this Soul Master God, who had been tormented by his faith for countless years, would definitely stir up chaos in the Middle-earth continent. But do you think this is over? No. In the 5 years since the version update, William had completed many missions. It was all for the endowment upgrade card. At this moment, he still had one endowment upgrade card in his hands. The prince glanced at his own innate gifts and quietly shifted his gaze to Handsome. Gulp! The sound of saliva being swallowed could be heard. Moses, who was refining the godhood, raised his head and glanced at William. He didn't know what William was doing. He had just become a legendary. Why was he so excited that he was swallowing his saliva? But soon after, Moses felt a flash of light in William's eyes. She couldn't help but be stunned. Eyebrows, eyes, lips, face. Oh my God! Moses blushed and shook her head. She didn't know what was wrong with her. She felt that William had suddenly become very handsome and charming. She really wanted to, it was so embarrassing. William had been very handsome in the past, but now, when she looked at him, she couldn't help but have a strange thought. Moses' brain had stopped working. The godhood that she was refining fell to the ground. She was lonely, helpless, and pitiful. William was still in a daze as he stared at his endowments. He didn't notice that Moses had completely fallen for him. Ding dong. Prompt. Your endowment Handsome has been upgraded to Beauty. Prompt. This endowment is a godly endowment and can't be upgraded again. Prompt. Your charm has increased by 100 points. Endowment Beauty. Other than the dark faction and creatures without intelligence, other factions, races, animals, plants, and saints, gods, will not have any hatred towards you. When they first see you, they will have a favorable impression of you that is equal to your charm. At the lowest, they will have a favorable impression of you that is equal to 50% of your charm. When the creatures of the dark faction do not have any hatred towards you, they will have a favorable impression of you that is equal to 50% of your charm. At the lowest, they will have a favorable impression of you that is equal to 10% of your charm. When you trade with any factions, races, animals, plants, and saints, gods, you will enjoy a huge discount. Restriction: the higher the level and bloodline of the other party, the less obvious the effect. Friendly reminder: when most creatures of the opposite sex and same sex see you, they will have the mentality of courtship. Please be careful. It is recommended that you wear a pair of divine underwear. His handsome endowment had been upgraded. Was William happy? Of course, he was very happy. It was a godly endowment, but it could not be upgraded again. As for the restriction, was it useful? The legendary bloodline should be the best. How many professionals were there in the entire God's continent who were stronger than him? But what the heck was this friendly reminder? How could he wear a pair of divine underwear? Were all the creatures in the God's continent so evil? Am I already so handsome that people can't help but be attracted to me now? There was a flaw in this idiom. Gulp. William swallowed his saliva again. Perhaps it was possible. Fortunately, he had become a legendary professional, and he had an avatar that could enter the god realm at any time. Otherwise, if he encountered some psychopathic sages who wanted to kidnap him, he would be in deep trouble. He would not be any better than the succubus who had fallen into the hands of the demon hunters. Meanwhile, William finally raised his head and glanced at Moses, who quickly lowered his head. He was fiddling with the godhood disc anxiously. William did not know what he was doing. He did not even dare to look at William. But William was a person. Since his endowment had been upgraded, he had to test if it was useful. Thus, he slowly walked over with large stride. Moses, who was wearing a snow-white magic cannon, heard the approaching footsteps. Her heartbeat accelerated, and her body trembled. Her imagination was running wild. What is he doing? What should I do? If he really wants to do something, should I stop him? If I stop him, will he be sad? But if I don't stop him, won't it be too casual? Right now, Goddess Momo was like a young girl in love. Her heart wasn't just a little deer running around, it was simply a group of evil dragons roaring. Howl therefore. William slowly walked in front of her. He extended a finger and hooked Moses' chin. It had to be said. Goddess Moses' chin was very soft and fleshy. Their eyes gradually collided with each other. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. The space was completely frozen. There seemed to be only the sound of rapid breathing in the entire world. If he hesitated, he would lose. William slowly bent down. Moses also slowly closed her eyes. But at this moment, bang! The long-legged blood moon witch barged in. When she saw their postures, she tilted her head and looked at Moses cutely. Master. Moses narrowed her eyes and slowly turned her head. She was filled with killing intent. The blood moon witch blinked and trembled as she said, "The magic cannon has been successfully modified. The recoil, time interval, and power have been reduced. It can be fired continuously." And then, Moses asked back. That's it. The blood moon witch disappeared in a puff of smoke. She heaved a sigh of relief with lingering fear. The feeling just now was very terrifying. It was as if the two legendary bosses had stacked their auras on her. She could not breathe. It was a pity. The atmosphere had disappeared. Moses continued to fiddle with the godhood. William flew out to test his true strength. He would not hide the fact that he had become a legendary. It was not in his character to pretend to be weak. Announcing it to the world was the best thing to do. He was a 26-year-old legendary professional. Are you guys convinced or not? However, William emitted his legendary aura and arrived at the streets of the City of Dawn. No one cared about his aura. Whether it was the commoners, professionals, or players, all of them looked at him in a daze. 3 seconds later, a large group of female players rushed up to him. Prince William has become more handsome. I want to touch him. Oh my God, I thought that Prince William was once a Prince William. But now, he has become more handsome than ever. I can't take it anymore. I've alighted from the plane. It's time to kill some monsters. I'm leaving. Gosh, his hand speed is so fast. Tsk. He probably did not even use his hands. But what's with Prince William's looks? Is he the most handsome man in the gods' continent? Is he the reincarnation of the goddess of charm? Many players could not help but wonder. He should be the reincarnation of the goddess of charm. Otherwise, why would I look forward to seeing Prince William in female attire? Chongli Jyoga stroked his chin. His brain was in a state of fantasy. Chapter 542. According to logic, William entering the legendary realm would definitely make the players excited. It would increase the cohesion of their faction. But after the upgrade of the endowment Good Looks, everything changed. There were very few posts discussing William becoming legendary on the forum. The other posts were exclaiming that William's looks had reached the upper limit. If there was a comparison, it would be that William's looks were still in the mortal realm. But now, he had reached the immortal realm. His godly looks made countless players exclaim. After he became legendary, his videos and photos were spread all over the forums of the 7 continents. He used his looks to gain fans of both genders. Looks were justice. Looks were truth. In a short period of time, William had become the embodiment of justice and truth in the hearts of the players. There was no other reason. No matter what era it was, as long as you were good-looking, people would have a mentality. That person would be labeled as kind, righteous, and outstanding. Ugly? Of course, most of them were villains. This was how television dramas and movies were made. When the girls saw this kind of man, they would have the feeling, "Mommy, I'm in love." But when William's looks were out of this world, there was no need to say anything. Let alone in love, they would think that the two of them were already married and had families. They would even think about the names of their children and the names of their children. And no matter what the most handsome man said, it was always correct. It was that real. William was also surprised by the shock of the players. He returned to the city lord's palace and took out a mirror to look at himself. Instantly, he could not help but touch his face. He muttered to himself, "This should be the perfect appearance in the eyes of women. I'm falling in love with myself just by looking at myself. No, I have to control myself when I look at myself in the mirror. My looks are like drugs." Tisk, is this considered a kind of temptation? An alternative path of faith? William raised his eyebrows. He did not intend to walk the God's path, but he was good-looking. If he did not walk the God's path, it would be a waste. Forget it. Even if I don't walk the God's path, I might not be able to make others become my believers. After all, being good-looking is a lifetime thing. William decided to visit the 3 human empires when he had nothing to do. He would use his good looks to attract more talents to the City of Dawn. He did not dare to exaggerate. I, William Blackleaf, no matter what continent or faction I am in, I can eat without paying. I can only rely on my face. Thinking along these lines, he made a killing. The remaining gold coins could be used to develop the City of Dawn. Sigh, what a well-intentioned and frugal lord. This must be written in Listen to Sir Lord's words, so that his subordinates, civilians, and professionals can learn from it. In this way, he could also release a new version of Listen to His Lordship's words, which was another huge profit. Well then, this book has been updated dozens of times now. Thinking of this, William took out a precious magic fruit and started munching on it. Anyway, he had updated the book. Even if it was only a dozen words, if they did not buy the new book, they would be looking down on the Lord of Dawn. Odin had already left. He left with the space ring that was filled with mana. He did not directly step into the divine realm, because he wanted to see how many enemies there were on the middle continent. He wanted to lure them out and kill them all in one fell swoop. But there was no need to worry. Odin was now stuck at 90% divinity. That was to say, if he was given 1 minute, he would be able to condense his godhood and become a god. It was enough to solve most of the dangers. If it was not the peak of the sage level, it would not be easy to defeat Odin. And now, William had intended to take out the natural ferocious spirit essence and absorb it. But after thinking carefully, he realized that he did not have such a big appetite. He had to wait for a while before he could absorb such a large lump of magic essence. Otherwise, it would be too full. Forget it. I'm not lacking in endowments anyway. I'll think about it later. Maybe I can give it to someone else. William raised his eyebrows. He knew how thick his skin was now. He might not be invincible in the legendary realm, but he was invincible in terms of endurance. Unless a sage came personally, his health points would not be able to keep up. As for the current legendary experts, who was afraid of who? They could choose to fight one-on-one or in group. At this moment, beep 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 beep, the sound of the transmission scroll rang. William picked it up in surprise. The sound came from Burned Cinder. Burned Cinder had been in charge of counterattacking the magic sanctuary recently. Was there a dangerous situation? It seems that I have to take action. It's time to defeat the magic sanctuary. William laughed as he opened the transmission scroll. Swish! Burned Cinder's head suddenly appeared. He looked around and said, reporting to Prince William, "When I was leading the army to counterattack the magic sanctuary, I obtained a map. The location of the forbidden area of the flaming bird is marked on it. It seems to have been offered to the magic sanctuary by a certain force." When William heard the words flaming bird, his expression changed. Then Burned Cinder laughed and said, "The map also states that the flaming bird is a very powerful magical beast. It is comparable to the great dragon. Not only does it control the fire element, but it also has the ability to rise from the ashes." At this moment, he rubbed his palms and said, "I want to take a walk. Prince William, can you give me a holiday and let someone else help me lead the army?" After he finished speaking, Burned Cinder respectfully bowed to William. William stroked his chin and said, "I'm giving you a holiday to send you to your death. You're only an epic warrior, and you want to go to such a forbidden area? You even want to kill the phoenix for its treasure. Do you want to turn into ashes? Why don't you change your name to Ashes? Flaming bird. Rise from the ashes. This is obviously a phoenix. There must be a reason why the magic sanctuary did not go there." William recalled the chaotic battle in the later stages of the game. The birth of the phoenix. The phoenix in the gods' continent was a phoenix. There was no distinction between the male and female phoenix. Phoenixes were extremely rare in the entire gods' continent. Their combat power was stronger than the fire dragons. There were only a dozen phoenixes in the legendary continent, and they lived scattered. Other than when they were mating, they would gather together. Usually, they lived in their own territories. However, the phoenix race had sage experts. In addition, their numbers were too small, and they did not have the intention to fight for territories. Hence, not many forces dared to attack them. In the video that Burned Cinder sent, William saw the map. The location was in the magical beast forest in the eastern region. The birth of the phoenix in version 6.0 was a calamity that could destroy heaven and earth. I remember when this phoenix was trying to step into the Saint Realm, it unleashed its full power and turned 1/3 of the magical beast forest into a sea of fire. If not for the saints setting up a barrier, the entire magical beast forest might have turned into a fiery hell. Burned Cinder was interested in the phoenix. That's enough. However, in the end, this phoenix did not step into the Saint Realm. In addition, it caused too much damage to the magical beast forest, exterminating too many magical beasts and living creatures. Thus, it was killed by someone who could not bear to watch. Someone even took its blood essence and turned it into a phoenix warrior in one fell swoop. William held the transmission scroll tightly and muttered, "At that time, a sage said that the phoenix had suffered from internal injuries and was at the end of its lifespan. It had no choice but to advance to the sage realm. There seems to be something going on. Burned Cinder's strength is not bad. He has already bathed in the blood essence of the fire dragon. If he bathes in the blood essence of the phoenix, he might really become a dragon and phoenix." William had advanced to the legendary level, but he still had too few legendary professionals under him. Sora's was not a subordinate. Odin was a clone. Now only Sarima's could be used. William understood that an ordinary legendary professional was actually useless. If he wanted to advance to the legendary level, he had to be the most powerful one. William's attitude towards his subordinates had always been to strive for excellence. Sarima's had inherited the legacy of the beast god. He could walk the path of a druid until the end. When he became a legendary, he could transform into the time dragon and fight against 3 enemies. If the enemy did not have the time element, he could fight even more. In that case, William would have to help the others. It was not just for them. It was also for himself. If he wanted the City of Dawn to become stronger, William could not leave his subordinates. Moreover, they had been together for so many years. If he could help, he would help. William had a thought in his mind. He had to heal the phoenix's injuries. Not to mention other things. The life potion could heal 99% of injuries. The City of Dawn did not lack the life potion, but in the hearts of the other forces, it was counted by drops. Every 10 drops of life potion was equivalent to a life. It was priceless. Of course, as the professionals became stronger, the consumption of life potion would increase. William sent a telepathic message to Burned Cinder. That's a legendary super magical beast called Phoenix. It's not a flame bird. I know information about that Phoenix. Coo, come back. I'll find someone to replace you. I'll give you 100 drops of life potion. You can use the map to meet the Phoenix. From now on, it's up to you whether you become a Phoenix or ashes. Understood. Thank you for your care, Prince William. I'll definitely succeed. Don't reply. Your scrolls are bought with public funds. Every time you reply, my heart aches. No, I spent money to have this custom made. It's made of the exquisite fur of a fire magical beast, and it's very beautiful. But then again, I feel that there are flaws in your words, Your Highness. It seems that the words Phoenix Man and ashes are not good words. William could not be bothered with him. He raised his eyebrows. Was the salary of this group of people too high? Now they dared to order transmission scrolls? It's time to exploit them. William revealed a kind expression. He took good care of his subordinates as if they were his own children. They had to develop the habit of not spending money recklessly. Even if they had money, they could not spend it recklessly. Everyone was a professional, so they had to use their money wisely. They had to seize every opportunity to become stronger. In particular, they dared to eat, drink, and visit brothels. Now, they dared to order transmission scrolls? They had to reduce their salaries. Even if they did not reduce their salaries, the money had to be deposited in the Dawn Bank for cash flow. Subsequently, William touched the beast god necklace on his neck. He gazed into the distance, and his lips curled into a smile. He muttered to himself, "It's time to take back the World Tree. With my father, who is at the peak of the sage level, and Odin, who can step into the sage realm at any time, I don't believe that I can't protect the World Tree." Chapter 543. The sapling of the World Tree was not located on any continent. Instead, it was located on an island in the endless ocean. The entire island was covered by a natural barrier. The animals and plants that lived there were all relics from the mythological era. Originally, the major races of the gods' continent did not know that there was a sapling of the World Tree here. It was only when the barrier around the island gradually disappeared, and the aura of the World Tree gradually spread out that it attracted the attention of the major forces and caused the forces of the 7 continents to fight endlessly. William vaguely remembered that many of these fellows had died fighting for the World Tree. The epic level was a small fry, the legendary level was a super soldier, and the sages were the heroes. TSK. A chaotic battle between more than 10 heroes, the kind that didn't have a blood spring and couldn't revive. Could normal people handle it? But I'll bring it back now. As long as I'm careful and don't expose the aura of the World Tree for the time being, I might be able to capture it. William scratched his head. He still felt that it was a little dangerous. The World Tree was one of the treasures of the world of gods. It was a divine artifact that could look down on a main god. It was even more valuable than the main god's artifact and had more strategic functions. Even if he took it back, he had to ensure that the aura of the World Tree was not exposed. This required a lot of work. As for why the sapling of the World Tree had appeared on this island, nobody knew. It was the same for the elves. However, the World Tree had a unique characteristic. It was very likely that one World Tree had disappeared, and the second World Tree would only appear. His Royal Highness pondered for a moment and made up his mind to take a look around. There was no need for anyone else on this trip. He alone was more than enough. He knew the location. His hands were more than enough to tear the barrier apart, and he also had the Beast God necklace to transform into any kind of animal or magical beast. As long as he was careful enough, the World Tree's guards would not be able to stop him. Hence, the handsome prince came to the magic tower again. At this time, Goddess Momo was still refining the broken divine spark. She didn't know what use it would have after refining it, but the divine spark of the Lord God shouldn't be too small. The former saw that William had just left, but he had returned in no time. Furthermore, when she saw that handsome face, her heart was in a mess again. Fortunately, the prince didn't tease the goddess of magic. He only asked for some magic scrolls and slipped away under Moses's gaze. He was like a thief who kept stealing hearts. He would come to you to flirt with you, asking for a scroll to touch your hand. Don't ask me why I didn't go one step further. These were all tears. Subsequently, Burned Cinder returned from the teleportation hall. William personally handed him 100 drops of life potion. Then, he instructed him to do his job well and use his secret bootlicking skills. Now, he had to bootlick the phoenix the same way he had bootlicked William. Don't let that phoenix cheat you of the water of life. If you don't get any benefits in the end, it would really be a waste. Next, he flew all the way to the southernmost beach of the City of Dawn. He glanced at the super shipyard, which was more than 200 meters tall and thousands of meters wide. A new generation of warships, the Dawn vessel, was being built there. The quality of the warship would be legendary, and it would be able to sail and fly. The warship would be equipped with continuous magic cannons and orthodox magic cannons, the kind that the Blood Moon Witches had mentioned. The captain of this warship was still Jack. With the giant octopus at the peak of the legendary realm, he was the overlord of the sea, and he could exude a domineering aura at any time. Of course, the 2,000 veterans under Jack's command would also be replenished to 5,000, of which 1,000 would be cannon masters. In the naval battle, a launcher was far more useful than an archer. When the large-scale naval battle began, warships, cannons, and gunners, cannon masters, would be the standard equipment of the major forces. However, the prince was saddened by the fact that there were 18 epic professionals in the City of Dawn, but none of them were epic cannon gunners. Or rather, the strongest cannon master in the entire legendary continent was only a legendary cannon master. After all, the consumption of cannon masters was too high. Those who were rich might not become cannon masters, and those who were poor could not afford to become cannon masters. Only the City of Dawn was rich and powerful. It had 2 legions of cannon masters in its regular army, which had a total of 10,000 soldiers. However, if there was a sufficiently strong launcher, then they would be able to display a very abnormal strength in a group battle. If the great enchanter was a walking magic cannon, then the legendary cannon master was a walking super continuous magic cannon. Subsequently, William transformed into a rainbow light and soared into the sea of clouds. In a few seconds, he disappeared from everyone's sight. No one knew where William had gone. The endless sea was too vast. If he had deviated from the sea route, no one would have known where he had gone. William's departure did not have any impact on the City of Dawn. But the news that the City of Dawn had entered the legendary realm had spread throughout the entire legendary continent. Some people entered the legendary realm, but they were just legends. They could not cause any commotion, because it was impossible to rely on a professional who had entered the legendary realm after hundreds of years to advance further. There were people who were late bloomers, but the number of such people was even lower than the number of genius professionals. Especially for a 26-year-old half-elf like William, who had entered the legendary realm before he reached adulthood. This meant that he had 1 foot in the door of the sage realm. According to his father's arrogant words, he would suppress a martial sage for 10 years. Then, his son would deal with him personally. Gosh, it was not impossible. William had entered the legendary realm and was considered a genius who had grown up. The City of Dawn was also valued. Training geniuses were geniuses. They would always be at the top of the ladder. With such great luck, they could accomplish things that others could not in a short period of time. The number of such people was actually very small. not to mention the southern region. Even in the legendary continent there would be one in 100 years. But what about now? It seemed that many geniuses were unhappy that William had entered the legendary realm, causing them to break through one after another. In a short span of 3 days, all the regions and forces in the legendary continent had young genius professionals who stepped into the legendary rank one after another. In the southern region, there was Delosis who had joined the mercenary guild. In the eastern region, there was the super genius Thor who belonged to the war-ending empire. In the northern region, within 3 days, there were 6 people who had entered the legendary realm. No one would believe that they were not suppressing their realms. But this also proved one thing. The Lord of the City of Dawn was very powerful. His unexpected breakthrough had caused many geniuses to fight to imitate him. Obviously, many people had treated him as an opponent. But at the same time, the City of Dawn was not without danger. There was a saying that went like this: the son had to pay his father's debts. Rogers had caused a lot of trouble in the legendary continent. Now that he had become a sage and had the combat power of a peak sage, not all the forces were afraid of him. Peak sages were not cabbages. But it was not something that could be found with 10 fingers. Moreover, some people were not afraid of death. The Sunset Empire was located in the western region. This huge human empire had countless years of history. It was the only empire in the legendary continent. It was this empire that had split into the war-ending empire and the Frost Empire at the end of the Second Era. Now, the 3 empires were like 3 legs of a tripod. Each of them occupied the largest and most flourishing territories in the legendary continent. But the power of the Sunset Empire did not need any wars or battles to prove itself. In the eyes of many people, the Sunset Empire was the most powerful force in the legendary continent. The number of saints they had was always a mystery, and the number of legend professions they had was even more unclear. At this moment, in the palace of the Prince of the Sunset Empire, he was entertaining a guest from afar. What did it mean to come from afar? Other continents? No. That was not far enough. It was an alien. The Purple Moon people. There were 3 moons above the gods' continent. They were the Blue Moon, the Purple Moon, and the Green Moon. William had entered the Abyss World with the Blue Moon people and obtained a space staff. He even stripped the robe of the son of the Blue Moon and gave it to his enchanter. Although the Moon people often stirred up trouble in the gods' continent, the higher-ups of the gods' continent did not consider them as a dark force. Instead, they saw them as a part of the gods' continent. They were a race with longevity, similar to the winged people and the elves. Who was the Prince of the Sunset Empire? Di Luo, the younger brother of the Sunset Emperor. He was a legendary professional. The Purple Moon person who came was also a legendary professional. His name was Kyle Luanya. Di Luo looked like a middle-aged man. When he saw the newcomer, he raised his glass and smiled. I haven't seen you for 20 years. You Moon people are really good. You still look the same. It's a pity that you are not. It took you 20 years to reach the legendary realm. Now you look like a middle-aged man. Kyle chuckled. Di Luo smiled. His facial expression did not change much. Both of them were God's favored ones. Both of them were geniuses who reached the legendary realm in their 20s. Originally, their path would be smooth sailing. They could even reach the legendary realm in 7 to 8 years, or at most 10 years with the full support of their respective forces. But that man appeared. He came quietly, and hurriedly slipped away. Following that, their luck plummeted to the bottom. They were only legendary professionals, so they did not have a very clear sense of luck. They only felt that they had lost something. After that, the 2 of them stumbled on an adventure. They encountered all sorts of deceptive things, and it was as if they had a halo of bad luck. If it weren't for the fact that they were quite powerful and had a lot of trump cards, their adventure might have been ruined. When they returned to the Sunset Empire, some saints found out that their luck was gone. It was almost impossible to see, and their future was almost hopeless. When the two of them were a little confused, the name of that man spread across the entire land. His ability to absorb other people's luck was also found out. Luo and Karen also remembered that day. That day was like a bad day when they lost something. Although their luck fell, it would not be negative. It was just lower than the average of normal people. But even so, their cultivation path would be full of twists and turns. Even though they had the support of powerful forces, they still had to consume 10 times more resources to reach the legendary realm. Want to go further? I'm sorry. I really can't. Just focus on becoming a legendary professional. I don't have the resources to help you reach the Saint Realm. The two of them looked at each other, speechless. One of them was the younger brother of the Sunset Emperor, and the other was supposed to be the son of the Purple Moon. But now everything was over. Karen looked at Luo, who was smiling without saying anything, and said in a deep voice, I want to try again with the power I have accumulated for so many years. You help me. Don't be afraid of Rogers. I am a legendary now. I seem to have a lot of power, but in fact, I am a useless man. My brother won't help me too much. Luo laughed at himself. I don't want to give up. It is said that the Lord of Dawn City inherited Roger's luck. People call him the Son of Luck. But even if I don't kill him, I have to stop him from reaching the Saint Realm. I am willing to die. Karen clenched her fist. Luo raised his eyebrows and said, Oh? What do you have in mind? This is it, the weapon of misfortune? Luo widely opened his eyes and couldn't help stepping back. Chapter 544. William did not know that two talents were secretly plotting against him. Even if they could not kill him, they would use the divine weapon of misfortune to destroy his future. Otherwise, he would definitely shout at them, Come on, chase me. If you catch up to me, I'll let you. Ahem, what was William doing? He glanced at his luck points because he discovered a problem. His father had said that if he became a legendary, he would have great luck. But what about luck? What about luck points? You're a liar. A man's mouth was a liar. Why was there no movement at all? All right. He had thought it through. He must have been fooled. After all, it was a verbal attack. His cheapskate father's luck points were maxed out, but his face and looks were really not good enough. William believed that if he were to use 1/10 of his handsomeness, his father's looks would change drastically. But if he used his verbal attack, it would be the key reason why he could not die in the legendary continent. In the end, he could even trick his mother. In these 3 days, William had been searching for the island with the world tree on the endless sea according to his memory. This island was not small. It was comparable to the small world that Odin had entered. According to the land area, it could be considered a continent on Earth. But it was an island that would only appear in future versions. It would be difficult for him to find it now. Logically speaking, he should bring Annie along to try his luck. This was because the natural barrier on the island had an invisibility effect. It was difficult to see through it with the naked eye. But William had a pair of eyes of thunder and the innate eye of truth. No matter how powerful the barrier was, he could find a chance to detect it. But the world tree is very important. I don't dare to let others participate. William's heart was heavy. It was not that he did not trust Annie, Moses, and the others, but the more people who knew about it, the easier it would be for others to plot against him. After all, it was the 4th epoch now. Many saints were very good at divination and could even deduce the future direction of the gods. If Moses had already stepped into the saint realm, even if he told her the information and location of the world tree, she could think of a way to hide it and not let any problems happen to herself. However, if Moses really knew about it now, as long as she made some deductions, some warlock saints would be able to sense that something was amiss. According to the words of the God's continent, the world tree has great luck. As long as you have a slight relationship with it, it may lead to the future. Time slowly passed. Soon, it was the 7th day. William continued to wander around the boundless sea. He didn't seem to gain anything, but as he discovered some islands, the map of the sea in his mind became clearer. On the 10th day, he had already confirmed the detailed coordinates of the World Tree through these islands. The 11th day. Early in the morning, the stars and the moon had not completely retreated. The sun had already risen from the horizon, and the clear fog formed by the cool night air had also gradually dissipated. At that moment, at the same time the fog dissipated, William's eye of thunder flashed with electric arcs. He saw a dreamy island. In the middle of it was a towering ancient tree that covered the sky. It towered into the clouds. The tree and the tree seemed to form two different worlds. Under normal circumstances, it was more like a mirage, or an illusion that appeared on the sea for a long time. But for legendary professionals, unless they were mentally attacked, illusions would become legends. Even if it was a very short sixth sense, it was enough for them to take it seriously. The prince could tell at a glance that it was the island with the World Tree. Without hesitation, he immediately transformed into a ray of light and flew towards the rising sun. William's speed was now very fast. He flew at a speed that was several times faster than the speed of sound, and he was very close to the sea. Soon, he left a long white line on the surface of the sea. If one were to look at it from a close distance, they would see that he left behind a cyclone that lingered for a long time, and even caused a shallow trench to form here. Time flew. 3 minutes passed. 10 minutes passed. Suddenly, William's body suddenly disappeared. He did not enter the island. Instead, he suddenly changed his direction and slowly flew to the other side. But no one noticed that he had transformed into a magical seagull. He did not suddenly transform because he sensed something. He was just being cautious. Moreover, this sea seemed to belong to Atlantis. Even if he did not want to be discovered, he had to be careful. In fact, when the World Tree appeared, Atlantis was the first force to discover this island. But because they were the first to discover it, it led to the destruction of Atlantis. This huge sea king kingdom was completely destroyed. Countless underwater cities were turned into ruins. 2 hours later, William, the small seagull, took a long detour and returned to this place. He hovered in mid-air and found the mysterious island that could not be seen, heard, or entered. He was already near the island, but there was still an endless sea in front of him. Even if he flew forward again, he could not touch the island. It was as if the two of them were in different spaces and times. But I have a scroll. William raised his eyebrows, and a space scroll appeared in his claws. Instantly, a distorted space crack appeared in front of him. But in the next second, originally it was a pitch-black spatial rift, but now another world had appeared. William scanned the surroundings. He did not sense any abnormalities, so he flapped his wings and disappeared without a trace. The space crack also disappeared. After an unknown period of time, William seemed to have arrived in another world. He was still in the form of a small seagull. What he saw was a lush green island. But the illusion that he saw previously, which was the huge World Tree, had disappeared. But William was very sure that this was the island with the World Tree, because he saw many creatures and magical beasts from the mythological era. The trees were also extremely tall. They were hundreds of meters tall, and they could be seen easily. Even ancient trees that were hundreds, thousands, and even thousands of meters tall could be seen. Whenever there were trees that were thousands of meters tall, he could also see many flying magical beasts at the top of the trees. So William transformed again. He transformed into a giant eagle with a wingspan of tens of meters and flew into the island. Suddenly, 10,000 meters to the left, a group of huge pterosaurs appeared. They were circling around a tree that was more than 3,000 meters tall. After a while, they slowly landed on the branches. Their habits were like a group of pigeons. But this group of idiots only knew how to caw. They did not know how to coo. It was obvious. On this island, the ancient trees that were thousands of meters tall had become the habitat of various magical beasts. The giant eagle that William had transformed into was too huge, and he emitted a legendary aura. Hence, the other flying magical beasts didn't treat him as food. Instead, they avoided him. Even the winged dragons with dragon blood didn't dare to get too close to him. The seed of the world tree seems to be in the center of this island. It is hidden in a withered tree trunk, and there are legendary magical beasts everywhere. Let's fly nearby first. It shouldn't be that troublesome. William flapped his huge wings and flew to the center of the island. His speed was very fast, and within a few minutes, he had already arrived at the central point. But when he neared the legendary magical beast, the giant eagle swooped down. The moment before it neared the surface, it suddenly transformed into a cute magical beast kitten. Its entire body was grayish-white, and it nimbly jumped under the fluorescent forest. At this moment, William concealed his aura and did not let any legendary magical beasts detect him. Some ordinary magical beasts that wanted to attack him were often so frightened by his gaze that their legs trembled. They wanted to immediately dig a hole and bury their heads in it. And from the moment he entered this space, it had only been less than half an hour. He had already arrived at the center of the island. As for the tree trunk that was thousands of meters tall and had no signs of life, it appeared not far in front of him. William was a little excited, but the gray kitten that he had transformed into did not approach it, because he discovered a problem. Tens of thousands of meters away, the aura of legendary magical beasts was everywhere. But the bare tree trunk in front of him seemed to have no treasures. Not to mention magical beasts, there was not even an animal here. This was a little unreasonable. The world tree was obviously very attractive to animals and plants. When the world tree was taken away, this island became a sacred place for players and professionals to adventure. But no one revealed what kind of monster was guarding the world tree. William the kitten sighed. He squatted on a branch and quietly looked at the dead tree. He even used his small claws to touch his face. He seemed to be a little worried. Just as he was thinking about whether to run over and test it out, hissing sounds came from high up in the sky. William the kitten quickly climbed to the top of the tree. He looked up at the top of the dead tree trunk. He saw it. There was a giant snake hidden in the tree trunk. It was the aura of a sage magical beast. Its huge head drilled out of the tree trunk and was sticking out its tongue at the sky. Very soon, a large group of legendary magical beasts growled in a low voice. They all had the intention to surrender. Then they started to use their own methods to continuously drive all kinds of flying magical beasts over. More than 1/10 of the pterosaurs that William had seen previously were driven over. As for some legendary magical beasts on the surface, they also grabbed many of the surface magical beasts and used their great strength to throw them thousands of meters into the sky. Hence, William saw a very unforgettable scene. The giant snake did not even drill out of the tree. It only used its tongue to sweep the entire sky. Countless magical beasts that flew over reluctantly and those that were thrown into the sky were all sucked into the belly of the snake's tongue and swallowed. The snake went back and forth and devoured thousands of magical beasts. Then it let out a comfortable hiss and drilled into the dead tree again. William the kitten was stunned. His saliva involuntarily dripped to the ground. His tail was raised high and wagging. Isn't the sage-level world snake extinct long ago? Meow, Odin really has to become a god to snatch the world tree. Chapter 545. William the kitten sighed, rolling around on the ground with its two little paws covering its ears, feeling very conflicted. Because he did not dare to get too close to the world snake, but the seeds or saplings of the world tree should be guarded by this big guy. What should I do? If I let Odin directly step into the deity realm, it will also have some shocking effects. Asgard will no longer have to worry about the consequences. It's a pity that I can't take the opportunity to kill those guys who want to cause trouble for me. The kitten with gray fur turned over and jumped, walking back and forth on the branch. After a long time, William the kitten clenched its little paws and made up its mind to leap into the air. Before landing, it transformed into a pangolin and instantly dug a hole in the ground. That's right. What's there to be afraid of? I'm now a man with 72 transformations. As long as I'm careful, he may not notice me. Even if he does notice me, at most, he will swallow me in one bite. Can he kill me directly? With my current tankiness, it's very safe to hold on for a minute. It won't be too late to let Odin come over then. William the pangolin used an invisibility scroll and an aura shielding scroll on himself. Although these were only legendary scrolls, the effects should not be too weak. Swish, swish, swish. William the pangolin quickly dug a hole that was thousands of meters in length, reaching directly to the root of the dead tree. In fact, the dead tree in front of him, which was thousands of meters long, was the remaining branch of the world tree. It was hard to imagine that the branch of the world tree was so big. When William came near the dead tree, he did not dare to continue digging. He believed that with his means, he could definitely dig through, but he dared to guarantee that if he dared to dig this thousands of meters tall dead tree of the world tree, he would definitely be detected by the world snake. What else can I do? While William was thinking, his tail suddenly knocked away a small pile of soil behind him. Then, when he turned his head, his eyes lit up. Not only was there a tunnel that he had dug outside the dead tree, but there were also many tunnels of different sizes beside it. It seemed that many magical beasts had been attracted here, so they dug holes to test it. William wandered around in the intricate tunnels, but did not see any corpses. But he immediately found that these tunnels were actually gathered in one place. He carefully crawled over and saw that the roots of the withered tree had been dug out by something, leading straight into the withered tree. That's not right. So many tunnels have appeared, but there are no corpses. There seems to be some danger in this tunnel that devoured all the magical beasts that entered. William swallowed his saliva. But those who were skilled were bold. He once again transformed into the nimble little gray cat and walked towards that direction step by step. His cat steps were very slow, very light, and practically soundless. On top of that, he had used scrolls that shielded his presence and invisibility. Snakes used heat sensors and odor particles to find their enemies, so the world snake might not be able to detect him. Well, at most, I'll be swallowed in one bite. I don't believe that anyone can digest me in 1 minute. William the kitten plucked up its courage and carefully walked into the cave. In fact, the 1,000-meter-tall dead wood was not too thick. Its diameter was about 100 to 150 meters. He was a little suspicious about how the world snake was hiding in it, because the diameter of the world snake was also very exaggerated. But as he walked into the hole of the withered tree, something suddenly changed in front of him. Or rather, the interior of the world tree's trunk and leaves were all different spaces. When he stepped into it, he directly entered another space. There was no sun in this space, but the sky was very white. There were many flowers and plants growing on the ground, but there were no trees. But under his soul perception, the things hidden under the flowers and plants were actually countless white bones. What was going on? Could it be that this fellow had to spit out the bones after eating magical beasts? His stomach did not seem to be in good condition. Should he have a stomach treasure? William glanced at the world snake that was thousands of meters long and tens of meters in diameter. It was using its tail to tear a chasm in the ground, and it kept spitting out corroded magical beasts from its mouth. Whether they were dead or alive, they were all covered with soil. Finally, it used its tail to skillfully pat the soil to prevent the magical beasts that were not dead from crawling out. William the kitten's eyes widened. What was going on? Could it be that the laws here were different? If a magical beast was planted now, 2 would be born next year? It was a huge gain. Hiss, hiss. After the world snake buried the thousands of magical beasts underground, It suddenly raised its head and stuck out its tongue. William did not dare to move. He obediently hid in the flowers and plants, afraid that he would be discovered. At the same time, he also prayed that Moses' scroll was powerful enough. The world snake shook its head. It seemed to think that there was something wrong with it. It reckoned that there was too much smell of the magical beasts, causing it to have an illusion. This showed the difference between magical beasts and intelligent races. For intelligent races, epic professionals and above did not have an illusion. As the world tree turned around and used its head to touch a sparkling green sapling, the world tree's eyes widened. William used his insight. It was the sapling of the world tree. Level? Position level. Meow, is it really the sapling of the world tree? The kitten's eyes were wide open. He had never thought that the world tree would be so close to him. This kind of temptation was like having a naked, big-breasted lowly lying on his bed. Who would be able to resist this temptation? Fortunately, William was not that kind of person. He calmed down and finally understood why the sapling of the world tree was surrounded by withered bones. Or rather, the world snake did not want to eat the magical beast. It wanted to use the magical beasts as nutrients for the growth of the world tree. But how was it possible for the world tree to grow with just the nutrients from the magical beast? The world snake was silly. It only knew that it was beneficial for the sapling of the world tree. But it did not know why it had been so small for so many years. It was because of the lack of nutrient. But then again, if not for the care of the world snake for so long, the sapling of the world tree would not have withered, but it would not have become crystal green. Why did the world snake want to nurture the world tree? It was because it was rumored that the extinct world snake needed to devour the world tree to become stronger if it wanted to reach a higher realm. One could say that the world snake was a hard-working farmer who was waiting for the day of harvest. When William saw this scene, he tilted his head and thought hard. His two big round eyes suddenly lit up. In the next moment, 3 epic heroic spirit puppets suddenly appeared and rushed towards the sapling of the world tree. The world snake was stunned and suddenly became furious. It gently swept its long tail, and the 3 heroic spirit puppets were crushed into pieces. It was a more tragic outcome than self-destruction. But at this moment, the kitten transformed into his human form. William's body was like an illusion as he dashed towards the sapling of the world tree. The world snake's reaction was not fast. It immediately opened its mouth and bit, but there was only a loud boom. The world snake bit a huge pit on the ground. But William's body passed through its head and dashed towards the world tree. There was no contact between them. It was as if they were in different dimensions. This was the sacred thunder incarnation. It was a skill that William had obtained when he had reached the Grandmaster level. Not only could it ignore collision, but it could also ignore most barriers, control skills, and attack skills. When this skill was upgraded to the legendary level, it could last for 5 minutes. In other words, if the world snake did not have any special skills, it would be very difficult to hit William. William saw that he was about to reach the sapling of the world tree. The ear-piercing hissing sound rang in his ears again. At that moment, the space around the sapling of the world tree suddenly exploded. Countless black spatial cracks joined together and formed a pitch-black wall. William thought that he was tough, but even if he used the sacred thunder incarnation, he could not directly pass through the severed space. But at this moment, he still crushed the positioning space scroll. A space tunnel appeared. William's body was like an illusion as he stepped into the tunnel. When he was about to pass through the obstructed space, the space tunnel collapsed again. The world snake used its tail to break the space tunnel and forced William to retreat. However, His Royal Highness had a lot of spatial scrolls. He crushed another spatial locating scroll. Meanwhile, Odin, who had not reached the divine realm, appeared beside William. His body emitted pure golden light as he resisted the world snake's tail. Boom! Both sides collided. A large piece of space shattered. Odin was sent flying like a cannonball. He looked miserable. But the world snake's tail did not break the space tunnel. Instead, many scales fell off. This time, the world snake was dumbfounded. How was it possible? Odin's aura and combat power were only at the legendary level. How could his defense be stronger than the world snake's? It had to be mentioned that Odin did not have William's flesh. But the sacred spirit's avatar had the special effect of invincibility. Even though it did not have the special effect of eternal invincibility after merging with the natural gods, it still had the skill to make it invincible for a short period of time. This was the key reason why William dared to let Odin join the Orc Empire. At the epic level, he had the invincibility effect for 3 hours. At the legendary level, he had the invincibility effect for 1 hour. It seemed that the higher the level, the shorter the duration of Odin's invincibility effect. But it was a little crazy that an expert of this level could still have the invincibility effect. Odin relied on his invincibility ability and started to crazily clash with the world snake. After William passed through the space barrier, he finally arrived in front of the sapling of the world tree. But when he was about to uproot it and stuff it into the temporary alternate space, he was stunned. He did not pull it. Gosh, it can't be. It's the sapling of the world tree. Does it have to take root so quickly? William was stunned. Odin could not resist for long. Even if he could, the world snake would rush past him at any time. Hence, he took out the life potion and revealed its scent. At this moment, the branches and leaves of the world tree spread out, and even its roots broke out of the ground. It seemed like it wanted to absorb the life potion. William slapped the sapling of the world tree until it was dizzy. While it was unprepared, he grabbed it and stuffed it into the temporary alternate space that Moses had given him. TSK, I thought that the world tree had some intelligence. I didn't expect it to be a glutton. Chapter 546. The world tree was knocked unconscious and taken away. William did not hesitate. He crushed a space scroll at the same time. Just as he stepped into the space tunnel, Odin was also smashed into the space crack and disappeared into the endless darkness. William's expression did not change. If a non-space element legendary professional did not have a space scroll, once he fell into the space crack, he would definitely not be able to get out. But William had the summoning skill, so he was not afraid that Odin would get lost in the space crack. He decisively stepped out and left. Swish! In an instant, he traveled hundreds of thousands of meters. He had already left the alternate dimension of the dead tree. He looked at the world serpent that had come out of the dead tree. William did not even have the intention to greet it. He crushed a second space scroll. But just as he stepped into the space tunnel, the world serpent suddenly opened its mouth, and a colorful light beam shot out. It seemed to ignore the distance in space and directly shattered the space tunnel. When the light beam streaked across the space, the forests, seas, and countless magical beasts were instantly vaporized. It was like a comet landing on the surface of the earth. It was unimaginable. William gulped. He did not dare to hesitate. He crushed another space scroll. Space vortexes kept appearing in midair. But every time he stepped into a new space vortex, he would be shattered by a new light beam. In just a few seconds, the island was like a crossdresser who had gone to a comic convention, only to be trampled on by countless big shots when she went to the toilet. Even her skirt had been taken away. It was a tragic sight to behold. Do you have to be so fierce? You're the world serpent. If I didn't know better, I would think that you're Godzilla with unlimited mana. William cursed and started to flee in all directions. After all, the world serpent's atomic breath was not weak. Although it was not fatal, a single shot would definitely reduce his health points by more than half. And the time effect of the sacred thunder incarnation had been interrupted. If he wanted to uproot the sapling of the world tree, he had to interrupt his own skill. But just as he was distracted by letting Odin devour the magic essence, swish! Another beam of light shot out. He could not dodge. Suddenly, he was hit. In the next moment, he was like a fly that had been swatted by a mosquito. His body was carried away by the light beam, and he heavily smashed into the space wall of the alternate dimension. At that moment, William felt as if his body had been melted. The battle energy shield on the surface of his body was useless. His elemental armor did not even last for a second before it was vaporized and completely disappeared. Not even a strand of hair was left. However, he still withstood it. Even though he had lost 39% of his HP and his body was riddled with bloody holes, he had still managed to survive. More importantly, although a lot of his flesh and blood had melted, the bones in his body were not damaged in the slightest. He did not have the body of an overgod, but all the bones in his body were indeed at the level of an overgod. William had activated the endowment of immortality. His defense value and recovery speed had increased tremendously. His injuries were also recovering at an extremely fast speed. The world snake could fly. Its dragon-like body hovered in the sky, covering the sky and the sun. It also had the power to destroy heaven and earth, and it continued to shoot light beams at Luli. As for William, he would dodge and block whenever he could. He did not look forward to any defensive equipment, because his best defense was his physical body. Although he could not withstand all the light beams, the well-endowed prince had a lot of life potion, so he would not be killed in a short period of time. He could fight a sage head-on. This was the strength of reaching the heavens in a single bound. But it's just a sage-level magical beast. William complained in his heart. The higher the level of a magical beast, the greater the difference between it and an intelligent creature. Because sage-level professionals had microscopic control, they could use the least amount of energy to defeat their enemies with the most restraining move. But sage-level magical beasts were slightly inferior. Although microscopic control had become their instinct, their deeper instinct was to continuously use their ultimate move. As expected, after 30 seconds the world snake was a little tired. After it had destroyed most of the alternate dimension, it stopped using its atom breath. Instead, it decided to engage in close combat with William. Fortunately, William was not a fool. As a ranger, he had high agility. Although he might not be able to defeat the world snake, he could at least avoid being attacked and waste less life potion. 30 seconds passed easily. Or rather, William was too tanky. Coupled with the agility of a ranger and the large amount of life potion, he managed to resist the world snake for more than a minute. At this moment, the world snake spat out another dazzling light beam. A figure appeared beside William. He raised his hand gently, and a light shield that flashed with white lightning appeared out of thin air. It easily blocked the attack. In the next second, the light beam and light shield exploded at the same time. A visible shock wave swept across the sky and the limited ocean. At the same time, the sky was filled with spatial cracks. Clearly, this alternate dimension would not last much longer. Meanwhile, William crushed the space scroll again. He wanted to leave first. Odin, who had become a god, was responsible for covering the rear. He wanted to see if there was a chance to kill the world snake before the alternate dimension collapsed. After all, this was a sage-level world snake. Its body was full of treasures. If William could get his hands on it, he would definitely make a killing. But he could not force it. Once the alternate dimension collapsed, he would immediately summon Odin back to prevent other sages from deducing the connection between the two. In the teleportation hall of the City of Dawn, William casually put on a set of clothes and walked out. He looked as if he had gone to have an affair and did not have time to put on his clothes. When the players saw him, their eyes were glued to him. It was a pity that William did not wait for the girls to shout shyly. He got up and flew to the magic tower. 3 seconds later, Moses tilted her head and looked at William, who was disheveled and seemed to have gone through a huge battle. She curiously asked, "Ugh, ugh, ugh." She did not expect that. William walked over and covered her small mouth. The goddess of magic was stunned. Her eyes were wide open. She breathed in the scent of the man in front of her. Her face quickly turned bright red, and her heartbeat accelerated. William solemnly said to her, "Don't ask, don't say why, and don't try to deduce what I want to do. Just do what I tell you to do." After he finished speaking, William even gave her a look. Emo nodded in a daze and then shook her head shyly. She could not help but snort. "Who do you think I am? Ahem, be serious. I'm not talking about that." Swish. It was not a slap. This time, Moses slapped William. Not only did William dodge it, but he also grabbed her small hand. William did not know if it was because he was too handsome. He rubbed his face and planned to use an ugly method. Then, he said in an extremely sincere tone, "It's really important. Do as I say. Don't ask, don't calculate, and don't say why. Otherwise, not only will the city of Dawn be destroyed, but we will also be destroyed. Unless my father comes to guard the city of Dawn." Moses felt that the man in front of her was very cute. Fortunately, she did not continue to let her imagination run wild. She nodded calmly. "Tell me, what are you going to do?" "I will make everyone in the Rainbow Lake leave. Regardless of whether they are living creatures or animals, as long as they have a little bit of intelligence, they will be eliminated. As for you, you should set up a boundary within a radius of 10,000 meters around the Rainbow Lake. You should even form an alternate space that is isolated from the gods' continent. However, you should not be able to block the flow of mana between the two worlds." Moses raised her eyebrows and snorted. "How is this a barrier? It's creating a small world that is connected to the gods' world." "Can you create it now?" William swallowed hard. It was awesome. Moses shook her head, but she still said softly, "It's not the main god's realm. It's not that easy. My previous small world was destroyed. Otherwise, I would have given it to you. I can only create an alternate dimension that has similar characteristics to a small world. It's just not as stable as a small world." "That's enough. It's really enough. Actually, an alternate dimension is enough." However, he still couldn't say anything about the sapling of the world tree. William still said emotionally, "When you step into the saint state, I'll definitely tell you. I'll only tell you one thing. Let it be a little secret between us." Moses' small eyes moved up and down. She did not dare to look directly into William's eyes. She felt very sweet. William pinched Moses' small face. "Let's go and make arrangements here. This matter is very urgent. You really don't need to calculate." "Got it. I've been trained. Unless I can't help it, I won't do any divination." William saw that Moses was joking, but he did not mind. Then, he pulled Moses to clean up some things near the Rainbow Lake. The Taurens were going to move, and the fishermen could only go to the sea to fish. This place would become a forbidden area in the City of Dawn. The commoners and professionals of the City of Dawn were very efficient. In particular, the Lord had personally come and asked them to move. The group of Taurens did not dare to hesitate. Under Fiu Roser's lead, they hurriedly left. The current City of Dawn was different from the past. Other than a few Taurens with high bloodlines, most of them were not in charge of fighting. They were only in charge of taking care of the cattle or the fields. They had become a group of outstanding agricultural workers. Not to mention, as long as the rewards were high enough, this group of hard-working Taurens could easily crush 4 or 5 ordinary commoners. Not only did they greatly reduce the labor force, but they could also save a lot of expenses. Very soon, in just a short span of 3 hours, everyone had left. Moses also used his own means to clean up all the living creatures and magical beasts that he could sense. He ensured that no hidden dangers were left behind. Time continued to pass. After that, he turned the area 100 meters underground. Everything that was alive within the perimeter had disappeared. Moses finished setting up the alternate dimension that was similar to a small world. The sky was already dark. William nodded at him and walked in alone. Odin, who had successfully killed the world's snake, instantly returned to this place. It was simple. He had made a killing. He could still vaguely remember when he had just become the Lord. A commoner in his territory had asked, "Lord, when will the city of dawn rise?" At that time, William had laughed. But now, he really wanted to say, "The rise of the city of dawn." It was today. Chapter 547. Odin had killed the world's snake and several legendary magical beasts. His harvest was indescribable. The flesh and blood of the world's snake could nurture many talents, and the scales on its body could be made into many armors. The 7 or 8 legendary magical beasts were also huge beasts, and the flesh and scales of this group of fellows were also very valuable. Each of them was a rare treasure. This was the foundation. The City of Dawn had never had these things. Now, with the addition of the World Tree, it was enough for William to create an epic legion. By then, the City of Dawn would not only have the strength to have high-end combat power, but it would also have the strength to have middle-level combat power. Odin threw the pieces of the world snake and the legendary magical beasts on the ground. Then, he left the alternate dimension and transformed into a rainbow light, disappearing between heaven and earth. Odin, who had reached the god realm, could fly very quickly. William stored the corpses of the world snake and the legendary magical beasts. Then, he found a relatively good location near the Rainbow Lake. He dug a hole and planted the sapling of the world tree, which was less than a meter tall, in it. At that moment, a miracle happened. The branches and leaves of the world tree began to tremble continuously, and a large amount of mana surged towards them. It was as if a mana storm had appeared in the alternate space, causing the mana to gather and form a dazzling mist. The center of the whirlpool was the world tree. The magical powers kept surging into its body. This alternate dimension could connect with the outside world. It absorbed the magical powers of the entire legendary continent and the world of gods. The world tree started to gather countless magical powers, and it also increased the density of the magic in the City of Dawn. In just 5 minutes, the professionals in the City of Dawn discovered that the density of the magic kept increasing. It seemed that there was no limit. Many people who did not know what was going on thought that William had moved a few magic mines from somewhere. Every time William moved a magic mine, the density of the magic in the City of Dawn would increase significantly. But there was a limit to it. But the use of the world tree was limitless. This tree was more like a super magic formation. It could absorb all the magical powers in the world and gather them here. Then, the magic would spread around the world tree. If it could only absorb and not produce, then the world tree might as well be called the world tree of annihilation. Its power lay in the fact that after absorbing enough mana, it could produce even more mana to feed the world. However, the premise of everything was to feed the world tree. At this moment, the world tree grew taller and bigger at a speed visible to the naked eye. After half an hour, it had already reached a height of more than 300 meters. Its luxuriant foliage made it look like a giant umbrella that covered the sky. Its entire body was emerald green, and every leaf had exquisite patterns on it. While absorbing mana to grow, the branches and leaves were also swaying continuously, like beggars who had never eaten their fill in their entire lives were suddenly invited to a big restaurant, and all they wanted to do was to stuff themselves with food. Time gradually passed, and 3 hours later, the world tree's height had already reached 1,000 meters. Its growth seemed to have slowed down quite a bit. However, if one were to look carefully, they would be able to see that it was constantly growing. The 1,000-meter-tall world tree was not considered very tall in the world of gods, but it had an unimaginable diameter. A 1,000-meter-tall world tree was at least 100 meters thick. The roots of the tree were like dragons, deeply rooted in the soil. In the process of growth, they were constantly absorbing the water of the Rainbow Lake. In just a short time, the water level had sunk by more than 3 meters. William kept swallowing his saliva. He was overwhelmed with emotions. As the world tree continued to grow, he would occasionally donate a few drops of blood to the surface of its body. Everyone said that the world tree had spirituality. William did not know if it could recognize a master, but it was always good to give it a try. As for why the world tree did not grow in the alternate dimension on that island, the crucial point was that the mana in that alternate dimension was almost constant, and it was not enough for the world tree to swallow in one go. The sapling of the world tree could nourish mana, but the alternate dimension was too small. Before it could nourish mana, the other creatures, animals, and plants living in the alternate dimension would probably die. Meanwhile, William walked in front of the world tree and stretched out his hand to touch the towering tree. Ding dong. Prompt. The world tree's affinity with you has increased by 595 points. Prompt. The world tree's affinity with you has increased by 240 points. The affinity between the world tree and you is currently at 835 points. Prompt. The world tree's spirit thinks that you are its guardian. Prompt. You have obtained the recognition of the world tree. You are within the territory of the world tree. Your health points recovery speed will increase by 500 points per second, and your mana recovery speed will increase by 500 points per second. Tisk, not bad, little brother. I didn't expect you to be a tree that likes my looks, William complained. The tall world tree did not speak. It just shook its huge body, and countless leaves covered it. It seemed to be complaining about William's slap that had almost knocked it out. The prince chuckled and ignored the world tree's tantrum. He simply stuffed the epic quality leaves into his spatial ring. Then he used his insight again. This time, the information panel was very different. World tree equality, world treasure form, infant height, 1,032 meters, growing continuously, tree trunk diameter, 103 meters. Life realm, passive in the life realm, all animals and plants with signs of life can be nurtured by the aura of life. Not only can they increase their lifespan over a long period of time, but they can also improve their bloodline power. Within the life realm, all animals and plants can recover faster after they are injured. The life realm will temporarily spread to a radius of 10,000 meters with the world tree as the center. The life realm will continue to expand until the world tree reaches adulthood. As the guardian of the world tree, you can control the size of the life realm. Magic realm, passive. Besides absorbing mana, the world tree can also nurture more pure and beneficial mana. After a long period of time, additional endowment attributes can be awakened. Within the magic realm, all animals and plants can enjoy twice the speed of cultivation. The magic realm will temporarily spread to a radius of 10,000 meters with the world tree as the center. The magic realm will continue to expand until the world tree reaches adulthood. As the guardian of the world tree, you can control the size of the magic realm. Life fountain, passive. The world tree is the greatest life form. It will condense a life fountain in the tree trunk. It has many effects such as prolonging lifespan, healing injuries, increasing vitality, and resurrection. This is a treasure that countless life forms dream of. Magic fountain, passive. The world tree can absorb the mana in its body and condense a magic fountain with the aura of rules. This item has many effects such as increasing vitality, increasing training speed, awakening endowments, and improving bloodline power. This is the most precious item for countless professionals. Other abilities? William was completely stunned. He felt that he had picked up the greatest treasure in the world. It was a world treasure. He felt that at this moment, thousands of words could only be summed up into 2 words. Gosh! William was at a loss for words. Besides the indescribable excitement in his heart, he also felt uneasy. It's too damn powerful. It's simply insane. William swallowed hard. It was no wonder that the elves were so powerful and arrogant. They had almost single-handedly resisted the invasion of the Dark World. Everything else aside, when the winged race and the human race faced the darkness invasion, they only took 30% of the credit. In the early, middle, and later stages, it was the elves who resisted the darkness invasion with their own strength. Whenever the territories of the winged race and the human race were attacked, the elves would immediately flee. They did not have to face the darkness forces head-on. During the later stages of the 1,000-year bloody war, the World Tree was destroyed. When the elves could not hold on any longer, the winged race and the human race came to reap the benefit. During the 1,000-year bloody war against the darkness invasion, the elves fought for 800 to 900 years. In the remaining 100 years, the human race and the winged race came to join in the fun. Not only did the human race not suffer too many losses in this battle, but they also took advantage of the opportunity to stabilize their position as the leader of the Third Era. The Harpies, on the other hand, plundered a large amount of resources and continued to live peacefully in Sky City. From that day onwards, no one dared to tell them what to do anymore. Sky City would fly wherever it wanted to. How did the World Tree disappear? The Dark World took advantage of the fact that there were too few sages in the lair of the elves. They sent dozens of Dark Lords to destroy the World Tree with the use of divine weapons and self-destruction. It was a suicidal attack in one wave rush. The city race had never imagined that a saint would disregard his own life to pay such a price. It was not a big deal if the World Tree had been destroyed. After all, there were many sages and legendary elves who had gone out to fight. There were also many clansmen left. They could still fight. But in the eyes of the elves, the World Tree was their religion. It was the safest place. Besides the small world, the World Tree also had many small spaces. The elves had countless resources, divine weapons, and treasures that were hidden in the World Tree after the World Tree was destroyed. The foundation of the elves was destroyed in just one battle. It was like the life potion and the source of magic. Other than a few people who would bring the life potion with them when they were on a mission, wasn't it the best choice to store it in the World Tree? This was also the reason why the elves counted the life potion in drops, because more things were king gone. They had been destroyed. They did not have the time to retrieve them. What should William do now? Ahem, I feel that it's safer to store them in the World Tree. If I take out too much, I don't dare to use them. The corners of William's mouth twitched. He decided that before he became a sage and Moses became a sage, only he would know about the existence of the World Tree. If someone found out and came over to snatch the World Tree away, the World Tree would not be able to survive. Fine. It was impossible. Chapter 548. What was the quality of a world treasure? William knew. The Serafkin Sky Castle was a world treasure. The 3 human empires also had world treasures. In fact, for most cultivators, legendary grade and above were considered sacred artifacts and divine artifacts. There was no detailed distinction between them. But only a few professionals knew that besides the divine and divine weapons that could increase a person's combat power, the other strategic divine and divine weapons were called world treasures. However, even if it was a world treasure, there were still strong and weak ones. Some world treasures could not even compare to a Lord God's divine weapon. Some were even inferior to ordinary divine weapons. But for the Serafkin Sky Castle, even if you offered 7 or 8 Lord God's divine weapons, would the Serafkin trade with you? Obviously not. The strategic value of the Sky Castle was much higher than that of the Lord God's Sky Castle. As for world treasures, they were different from divine artifacts and sovereign artifacts. Their value varied, but most of them had good strategic functions. But it's obvious that the World Tree is definitely more valuable than the Sky Castle. It might even be the most impressive treasure in the entire God's continent. Besides those functions, the World Tree can also give birth to elves. William gulped and walked out of the alternate dimension in a daze. At this moment, the sky was turning dark. When he walked out of the alternate dimension, he immediately saw the goddess of magic. Moses was wearing a close-fitting snow-white magic robe. The hem of the robe was extremely long, accentuating her tall and graceful figure. Her long, slender legs were full and supple. She was just standing there quietly, but she gave off an unimaginable allure. The two of them looked at each other and did not speak. Moses could sense the changes in the magic power. She did not need to make a divination to know that William was up to no good. He might have stolen a world treasure from another faction. Because other than that, there was no other situation that would make William so cautious. But no matter how she thought about it, she could not guess that the world treasure was the destroyed world tree. As for stealing, it was obvious. She had really misunderstood the kind, righteous, and handsome Prince William. It was obviously an ownerless item. Oh, you mean the world snake? He had become a dozen pieces and was lying dead in William's space ring. He was obviously not the owner. The arrival of the world tree did not attract the attention of the other powers in the City of Dawn. There were 2 points. 1. Those big powers didn't know that there was a sapling of the world tree on the gods' continent. 2. William believed that he had been very careful and prudent in this matter. There was no possibility of the secret being leaked. As long as he could control himself, even if the god of divination became a sage, he would not be able to predict that the City of Dawn possessed the world tree. As time passed, the years changed. Version 4.0 had been updated for a full year. It had been 2 months since William obtained the world tree. The City of Dawn continued to develop step by step. It had completely replaced the magic sanctuary and become the top power in the legendary continent. In addition to boasting about how awesome Her Highness was on their own forums, the Chinese players also began to show off on the forums of other continents in accordance with the good tradition of having fun alone. All of a sudden, the foreigners were so jealous that they almost flooded the official website. The officials could only pinch their noses and play the game, not daring to reveal their ID. Otherwise, their accounts might be hacked to zero. The players of the legendary continent were also invincible in their verbal attack. The players of 5 continents were defeated by them. Only the players of Middle-earth had the confidence to compete. It could not be helped. Odin had become a god. The Asgard that he had created was not very good or powerful, but the deterrence of a sage was enough to make Asgard the top power of a continent. The European players were also showing off. The players of the other 5 continents were infuriated. They were waiting for the merging of the continents to join forces to beat up the two sides. Version 4.0 was already halfway through. The number of players was reaching a saturation state. There were more than 50 million players in the continent. William still remembered that at the peak of this game in his previous life, there were only 60 million players online at the same time. The players were the chosen ones. With such a large number of chosen ones, many powers paid attention to them. They would not die, but they would often disappear for a few years. They were also good at collective betrayal. The chosen ones of the 7 continents had internal communication method. But many powers also discovered a problem. Why did the chosen ones of the City of Dawn never betray? That was because the chosen ones grew quickly. The development of the City of Dawn was not slow either. But what about the chosen ones of the other continents? They were either destroyed by the dark creatures or they were too small. This was the reason why they often betrayed the other continent. But when these powers realized this, the people that they had looked down on in the past had become advanced professionals. Even though advanced mages were unable to affect the overall situation, and any epic mage could easily wipe them out, but who knew if they could continue to grow? Even if they couldn't grow, when the third wave of the darkness invasion appeared, they could use this group of chosen ones to send them to their death. In a short period of time, the top powers of the 7 continents started to make their moves, hence, there was a lot of discussion on the forum. Many guild leaders, deputy guild leaders, and some players with powerful equipment received invitations from the major powers. But there was a saying, the City of Dawn liked elite soldiers. In fact, the empires and the top powers were even more so. They only invited players with good equipment, excellent skills, and sufficient combat experience. But this way, the players were not willing. Were they looking down on them? Were they discriminating? Were they trying to break up the guild? In the legendary continent, William discovered that the three human empires, the Serafkin and the top powers, had started to play trick. In the end, the players could not accept their request. Chu Liuqiu even made a post on the forum. Join the human empires? Why not retire in the City of Dawn? Many people clicked on the post. When they saw the video that Chu Liuqiu had posted, they burst out laughing. The location was a city in the war-ending empire. The players of the Glory Club were carrying out a group mission. At this moment, a Grandmaster Professional and an epic big shot suddenly walked over with a disdainful expression. The Grandmaster Professional arrogantly pointed at Chu Liuqiu and the others. It was as if he was talking to someone beside him. It was as if he was a 200-kilogram auntie picking her food in the market. Fortunately, the players were used to it. Moreover, the sudden appearance of an epic professional made them think that it was a hidden mission. Chu Liuqiu and the others did not do anything. They just watched as the epic professional continued to talk. But then, the epic professional who had been listening for a long time said to the players, "You should know that the chosen ones are not fit to be part of the empire. But the crown prince of the war-ending empire thinks that you are not bad. Now, follow me. Remember, if you become the crown prince's lackeys, look less, ask less, and talk less. Do what I tell you to do, and don't run around. Do you understand?" That was what he said. Instantly, countless players started to comment on the video. This B** starred is so pretentious. I want to crush him with my 150-kilogram body. D**MN. After seeing this group of annoying NPCs, I realized that Prince William is the best. Prince William is not only kind and handsome. Most importantly, every time I see him, I can imagine how attractive he is when he is dressed in female clothing. When Chu Liuqiu heard this in the video, he was dumbfounded. As professional players, they had more information than ordinary players. They knew that Prince William had always supported the second prince, Caesar. In addition, this guy was too arrogant. He did not even ask if they agreed. Did he think that they were his lackeys? Ck him. He was too much. Chu Liuqiu sneered and said, "We are mercenaries from the City of Dawn. Why are you trying to poach him? If the crown prince of the war-ending empire is looking for lackeys, don't we have you? We are not interested." Subsequently, the epic professional looked at Chu Liuqiu and the others in disdain. He did not kill them. Instead, he turned and left. However, everyone could see the disdain in his eyes. It was simple. In the end, the human empires did not take the players seriously. After all, the strongest player was only an advanced. Even if the sages gave some orders, the human empires might not take the players seriously. This situation was not limited to the legendary continent. The top forces of the 7 continents looked down on the players and wanted to recruit them. After browsing the forum for 3 hours, William almost had a stomach cramp when he exited the forum. They are really talented. The City of Dawn and Asgard are going to become the holy land of the players. After laughing foolishly for a long time, William could not help but frown. The players had rejected the invitations of the top forces. But if the treatment was better and the invitations were gentler, the players might want to join the empires and the top forces. But there was a crucial problem. Which side was it that had taken a step back? It was the nature of the players to be unrestrained and free. It was the nature of the empires to be strict and disciplined. The players wanted to carry out missions and explore every corner of the gods' world. The empires could give the players missions, but they would not let the players become idle mercenaries. The empires would only let the players join the army. There was also a way to become stronger. That was to train nonstop. This was also a way to gain experience. It was comparable to killing monsters and completing missions. In William's previous life, a player had experienced this. But there was a problem. Should the players play the game, or should the game play the players? It was simple. The empires were awesome. They could even rely on the mountains. But if the players were to wield their swords on the training ground for an entire day, would they be bored? This could not be helped. The gods' world was a game world to the players. The players needed freedom, and there was a natural contradiction between the two. In addition, the players were uncertain. The empires and the winged people would not allow the players to join their camps and wander around. The development of the situation was basically the same as in William's previous life. Only when the third wave of the darkness invasion dealt a blow to the major forces would they treat the players seriously and recruit them with better treatment. At the same time, gurgling sounds could be heard. William took a look at the transmission scroll and frowned. Why did the Purple Moon people want to talk to him? Chapter 549. In William's heart, he did not have a good impression of the people on the moon. There were 3 groups of moon people on the purple, blue, and green moons. They were semi-immortal like the winged people. They usually looked honest and well hidden. The general public did not have any impression of them. They did not know that there were people living on the moon. However, they would cause all kinds of trouble at critical times. The most troublesome Purple Moon people wanted to discuss something with him. They must have found out that the City of Dawn had become a top power and wanted to join forces with him to cause trouble. Why cause trouble? For resources. The 3 groups of moon people were comparable to 3 human empires. This power was obviously not weak, but the situation was clear. They could not fight for the gods' continent. However, the Moon Clan was like a rat hiding in the dark. They wanted the resources of the gods' continent. Every time there was chaos in an era, they would participate and move some of the resources back to the moon. I'm not interested in dealing with aliens. Lautner, reject the Purple Moon people's request. Say I'm not free. I don't accept employment from aliens. William sent a telepathic message to Lautner. Lautner was not surprised. William had told them before that the 4th era was too chaotic. They should not accept employment from foreign powers. Then, William stood up and glanced at the busy street. He suddenly murmured, "It's time to use our looks to recruit talents. 3 empires, here I come." Lautner replied to the Purple Moon people's invitation. D. Luo and Karen, who were from the Sunset Empire, were completely dumbfounded. After receiving William's reply, they really couldn't figure out what William was thinking. The City of Dawn had become a top power. Their mercenaries could be found all over the legendary continent. They would not reject any mission. The Moon people did not exist in the eyes of other small powers. But how could the City of Dawn not know them? Wasn't it reasonable to hire them to cause trouble? Why would William reject a mission that could earn him a lot of money? Hiss, did he see through our plan? D. Luo gasped. He could not help but ponder. Karen scratched her head. That doesn't make sense. Other than the higher-ups of both sides, no one else knows about our relationship. We did not dare to and did not want to seek revenge on his father. That multi-elemental enchanter would not be able to predict this. I also know that William has dealt with the son of the Blue Moon. This means that he does not have a strong opinion of the Moon people. There is no reason for him not to meet me. But immediately, another piece of news spread in the City of Dawn. The 4th era was a chaotic era. Dark forces invaded, and wars broke out frequently. Many of the major races suffered heavy casualties. William Blackleaf was going to personally head to the Serafkin and the 3 human empires to discuss a series of cooperation matters. He wanted to increase the diversity of employment missions and do his best for world peace. As soon as he said that, the players almost vomited. He did not know how Sir Feudal Lord had the nerve to say such an official announcement. The various factions were also secretly cursing the Lord of Dawn for being shameless. The Lord of Dawn was obviously the most troublemaker, but he still had the cheek to say that it was for world peace? But when the bards spread these words to the commoners, many commoners and professionals believed that the City of Dawn, as a top power, was the messenger of justice and a model of kindness. One sentence. William never needed intelligent people to believe in him. He only wanted to subtly influence the ordinary professionals and commoners so that he could attract more talents for the City of Dawn. However, Karen and Di Luo's eyes finally lit up as well and said, "Great opportunity." He said he's going to the Three Empires, which means he'll definitely come to the Sunset Empire. At that time, we'll have a chance to use our divine weapon. That's right, cut off his path forward. That's right, for revenge. Let the divine weapon of misfortune absorb all his luck, the two of them said confidently as they huddled together. After William had obtained the World Tree, he had been staying in the City of Dawn all the time. He had never left the City of Dawn, and the two of them had never found an opportunity to do so. But now that he was going to the Sunset Empire, his plan would be much simpler. William's first stop would be the Winged People, who were the closest to him. They had already conquered many small human nations. He wasn't alone. Now that he had become a top-notch force, he had to bring some powerful subordinates with him if he wanted to fight openly. Therefore, he rode on the Dusk Dragon and brought Legolas, Diablo, Violent Dragon, and Little Angel Chien to the former Lan Yu Grand Duchy, which was now the capital of the Winged People. But at this moment, the players, who had their own territories and cities, became restless. "Is what you said true? Did you find the blue dragon that ate the caravan?" Meituan asked with his eyes wide open. An elven ranger clenched his fist and gritted his teeth. "Yes, guild leader. It must be the blue dragon. But the blue dragon is a Grandmaster legendary boss. It has a lot of health points and I feel dizzy just looking at it." "You said that it is only a Grandmaster legendary boss. The evil dragon is not as good as the prince. Tell me the location, and I'll arrange the manpower." Meituan quickly took out the map of the 5 cities of the Desert Sea. The players of the big guilds in China had their own territories. Although they had to pay 90% of the city taxes, the big guilds still benefited from it. Moreover, these cities belonged to the City of Dawn, which meant that not many forces dared to provoke them. But this did not mean that the players would be safe. It was the 4th era. The second wave of darkness invasion had been dealt with, but there were still dark creatures that had to be killed. The devil's dens that appeared frequently were also the targets of the players' extermination. Due to the repeated invasions of the dark world, there were more and more civilians and professionals who believed in darkness. They often summoned devils, specters, and other creatures in the cities. From time to time, they would create chaos, and the security of the cities would not be improved. If the security of the cities was low, the civilians would not be able to use their strength, which meant that they would earn less money. Moreover, bounty hunters did not care about the forces. They were a group of murderers. As long as they had the chance, they could kill people in the cities. This was the norm in the human cities. Chaos, massacre, demon hunters and dark creatures clashed. Adventurers continued to explore. As for cities like the City of Dawn that were peaceful and free of evil, there were only a handful of them in the entire legendary continent. Moreover, the Red Fire Kingdom could not even take care of itself, let alone the 5 cities of the Desert Sea that were close to the Red Fire Kingdom. In particular, the dragon race did not know much about the division of territories. As a result, the 5 cities of the Desert Sea and the small towns were attacked by some evil dragons. To prevent the ownership of the cities from being taken away by Prince William, the players had to work hard to ensure the growth of the population and the steady growth of the economy. They had to protect their cities with all their might. However, the feeling of working hard to protect their city really made the players feel a little excited. The City of Dawn was too powerful. If the enemies attacked, the players would not even have the chance to defend themselves. It was just like the time when the Magic Sanctuary attacked. The players could only stare blankly. Even if they used their ultimate skills, they could not inflict a single drop of damage, but now, in their own cities, the players could truly feel the joy of protecting their own cities. The players could form their own NPC armies and NPC merchant teams. They could even recruit NPCs to become their subordinates and personal guard. It was a strong sense of immersion. In addition, everything became a mission for the players. They could earn experience points and earn money. How could the players not be happy? Meichuan and many other lifestyle players formed a guild with more than 30,000 members. They bought the ownership of a city. Meichuan was not only the guild leader, but he was also the mayor of the town. The population of this town was 50,000. It could be considered a small city, but the infrastructure was lacking. The players were working hard to upgrade it to a small city. Now, Meichuan Naiku had an NPC army of 1,000 men. Every day, he would bring 10 high-tiered NPC guards out for a stroll. Every time he walked down the street, he would not care about his family or friends. Whenever he walked on the streets, the civilians and professionals would greet him respectfully. It was a great feeling. He had become the real mayor of the town. However, the chaos caused by the dragon race was really annoying. In just a few months, besides a few people dying in the mouths of the dark creatures, hundreds of people were killed by the blue dragon's breath. The blue dragon was their greatest enemy. The merchant teams that passed through the desert suffered the greatest losses. Without the merchant teams, the players could not earn a lot of money by mining the minerals around the town and cutting down trees. After all, this was just a small town. Even if the players opened many shops, they could not earn a lot of money. Moreover, Meichuan's guild did not have enough money to build a teleportation hall in order to buy the ownership of the town. The merchant teams were the only way to develop the town. However, the blue dragon, the creature that could spit out the thunder dragon's breath, lived in the desert. The town's caravan had already changed many routes, but they were still eaten by this blue dragon as food. 2 words. It was a huge loss. Now, there were finally players who found traces of the blue dragon. Meichuan decided to slay the blue dragon. Even if the blue dragon was a Grandmaster legendary boss, he was determined to kill it. Therefore, while Meichuan was thinking, he had come up with a plan to slay the blue dragon. He decided to send 25,000 players and 500 NPCs to kill the blue dragon that was hiding in the desert cave. There were many ways to prepare. 100 heavy-duty crossbows, 10 cannons bought from the City of Dawn at a high price, mithril giant net. Secondly, Meichuan Naiku knocked on the table, and a good-looking NPC maid walked into the room. She looked at the mayor, who had never touched anyone. "Ask someone to get Legion Commander Carolina here." "Yes, my lord." Meichuan smirked. "Corona, the strongest NPC warrior under my command. He is an epic boss of master rank. He is my most powerful weapon to slay dragons." It was a pity. William did not know what he was thinking. Otherwise, he would have said to William, "There should be more professionals with this bloodline. I did not expect that one of them would slip through the net." It was simple. William had looted all the NPC professionals in the 5 cities of the Desert Sea, various small towns, Green Light City, and East Sea City. The players were just picking up the leftovers, but he wanted to say, "Brothers, don't do it. You guys are not enough for the dragon to spit out a breath. You can slay the dragon in the City of Dawn. You guys are my children,